for attending or viewing online our August 19th Faribault Public Schools business meeting. Yasko, is this okay, the mic check? Okay, thank you. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Benty, for being here. With that, I will entertain a motion. I call to order. Ms. Steves, do we have a quorum present?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do.
Thank you. If you would all now please stand for the pledge. If anybody has a hat, please take it off if you're able. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for that. I am sitting in for Board Chair Mr. Bellingham as he is out of town this evening, and Ms. Steves, you will be doing the timer for our public comment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful, thank you. This moves us to item number 2, the approval of the agenda. Before we do that, Ms. Moore has asked me to look at the policies that we have here tonight. We have an extensive list, 35 policies that we are looking to approve. In one big chunk, if you will, that would fall under item 8B, and then 1 through 35. Ms. Moore has asked that several of them be pulled out for an amendment that she would like to make, and that several of them be pulled out as she has some clarifying questions to be asked. Those total 13 of them. What I'm getting at is if any of you have any amendments as well, or if you'd like me to go through the list of items that she has questions and or amendments for, I can do that. Or if you're okay with us just doing that when we get there. When we do get there, all of the ones that we do not have questions or amendments for, we would like to take those all in one big motion and get those out of the way, and then we'll go through chronologically the ones she has questions and or amendments for.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is 522 on the list?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. Wonderful.
I'm
Board?
sorry, can I get a paper copy of the agenda? I have it pulled up here, but sometimes it's a little easier.
Do you have one
Should
in
be
your,
in her folder.
do you have one in your
It's not.
fold? No. All right. We're getting her a paper copy. Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Ms. Steves, do you want to review it quick before we?
I just want to check off the ones 522.
You want me to go through the list of the questions and the amendments quickly?
Sure.
Okay. So Ms. Moore has a question for clarification on policy 104. She has an amendment that she's going to propose on 418. She has a question on policy 425. Question on policy 506. Question on 514. And an amendment she's going to propose on 516. A question on 522. An amendment on policy 524. An amendment on policy 601. A question on policy 603 and a question on policy 604. An amendment on policy 608 and an amendment on policy 707. And it is my understanding that we have someone that needs to be somewhere by 6:45 tomorrow morning, so we should get through these rather quickly.
Mr. Chair, and this is paper copies for
Yep.
people too.
Perfect. So with that, we're just looking to approve the agenda with those tweaks. Any other comments or questions regarding the agenda? All right, hearing none.
We have a first and second.
We don't yet. No, I wanted to clarify that before we got there. So I'll now entertain a motion to approve the agenda as we just discussed.
So moved.
Second.
That was Mr. Robichaud and Ms.
Yes.
Burgo? Okay. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that. Okay, that brings us to item 3, recognition awards presentations. We don't have any this evening. So that brings us to item 4, items of information. 4A, student board representative. No report yet this evening, okay. Brings us to item 4B, school board members. The floor is yours. Would anybody like to go first? Anything you want to report? Mr. Robichaud.
You
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ms. Moore.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do appreciate the fact that when a grant runs out, instead of being convoluted into the budget, as our finance director said once, that for instance, the driver's training grant itself was brought before us, and I do appreciate that. I know, Mr. Benty, you have indicated at a previous meeting that grants started programs, and when the grant runs out, then we as a board have to decide whether or not to keep the grant and what the cost will be. And so I do appreciate the fact that when a grant runs out, it's actually brought up before the board. What I would like to see now, and I'm sure probably it would be beneficial to the rest of the board, is within the last 5 years, what grants have been approved, what were the purposes of the grants, how much was each grant, when does each grant run out, and the requirements or stipulations of each grant. And I think I'd like to ask the administration for this information. I think it would be beneficial to all of us to know what is going on in our school and what programs are being started up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Mr. Robichaud?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a chance this morning to visit Jefferson Elementary School with Superintendent Benty, just to see the staff. And unfortunately, I didn't eat any of the breakfast, but I thought I should have. But it was interesting to see all of the supplies lined up in the gymnasium for student supplies. And I know that there's been a tremendous push in this community to get supplies to our students, for those students who couldn't afford it. I think for all students, it was just nice. I mean, there are boxes and boxes and, a list of where those supplies should go, what classrooms. And the hallways didn't look ready for students, but we're assured that they will be ready for students. So it was nice to see the staff coming back with smiles on their face. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Other comments, board members? Time is yours. All right, hearing none. Before Mr. Benty, I turn it over to you. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. is all staff day,
Yes.
starts all staff day at the high school. All board members are welcome to attend, I believe. Would you have I'm not sure you want to stay for the whole presentation or not, but you certainly can. But it's in the Performing Arts Center, right at the high school, and maybe you'll talk more about it.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. That's it. I guess the floor is yours.
Okay.
Mr. Superintendent.
All right. So as Mr. Wolf said, tomorrow is our welcome back for our teachers. They were in the district today in their classrooms, but it starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning as our kickoff. There will be various speakers throughout that, and then it's really go, go, go until next Monday when the students arrive. So we're ready. As Mr. Excuse me. As Mr. Robichaud said that, we have a lot of supplies that have been brought into our buildings. We're trying something new this year, using our bulk purchasing power to be able to purchase supplies donated through some grants and some donations to be able to ease the financial burden on our families for that. So we've been able to drop, we're asking each family for $35. And in the past, the supply list would have been anywhere from $85 to $100 per student. So we're able to kind of use our ability to, like I said, to purchase, to drop that down for our students, and then we take on the burden of supplying them with their school supplies rather than the families needing to do that. So once again, like I said, we're excited to get the students back in the buildings. Tomorrow is our teacher kickoff, and we're ready to go. All of our construction projects should be wrapping up here before the students roll in. So,
Wonderful, thank you. Board members, any questions for Mr. Benty?
Yes, I have one question. I went by the high school. Will that athletic entrance be done
No, the athletic entrance will not be done. We ran into there was a storm sewer that was entirely clogged by tree roots. So those trees have been removed, but now they have to dig a very large trench to be able to remove that, fix that pipe. And those are, I think they said 4 to 4.5 feet down. So they got to go at least that wide to get them as well. So that entrance is going to be closed for a while until we get it all squared away.
But once it's completed, it'll be a tremendous improvement.
It'll be a tremendous improvement once it's completed, yes. So,
Thank you.
All right, thank you for those comments. This brings us to item number 5, public comment. And I believe we have one tonight. Ms. Mary Hackett, come on forward, please. It looks like your topic is library materials policy. You're good.
Do you want to talk about the disclaimer?
Did I miss it?
Yep. Chad's out of practice.
I'm out of practice, sorry. It's been several months since do I have to read this whole disclaimer?
no.
No, right?
No, we don't read it
Yeah,
anymore.
we don't read anymore. Okay, perfect. So I think we're good. No, I'm good. We'll turn it over to you, Ms. Hackett.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mary Hackett. I am here to talk about school library books and the proposed Minnesota School Board Association Policy 606.5 on library materials. As you know, I've presented to the board several times in the past year and met with Superintendent Venti and some members of the school board at various intervals to discuss objectionable content in the school library. I appreciate the willingness of the board to consider a policy now. Every time that I've presented on this topic, I've stated very clearly that I'm not in favor of book banning or book burning. I simply want to see age-appropriate content in our school libraries, content that helps our students learn and grow in ways that foster healthy relationships and good character, or at least is entertaining without being pornographic or obscene. This leads to some thoughts I have on the policy as currently written by the MSBA. Under responsibility for selection of library materials on page 2 of the policy, it states that the school board may decline to purchase, may lend or shelve or remove access to library materials legitimately based on pedagogical concerns, including but not limited to the appropriateness of potentially sensitive topics for the library's intended audience, etc. I think this is good to include as it offers the chance for the school board to legitimately consider whether restriction to age 18 and up or removal of certain books already in the system, such as Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which has 341 total profanities, obscenities, and more sexual references in a 304-page book. It's also good that the policy specifies that parent and guardian requests for restriction for specific materials for their students should be honored by the school. Selection of library materials on page 3 states that library materials shall meet high standards of quality in one or more of these categories: artistic quality and literary style. Am I out?
That's 3 minutes?
It was 2.
No, we got 3 minutes, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks.
I'm a first timer with this.
Okay, no worries. I was like, I thought that I timed myself. Okay, anyway, artistic quality is one: authenticity, critical thinking, educational significance, factual content, high interest for intended audience, and readability. These criteria to me seem minimalistic and subjective, kind of vague and open-ended. An argument could be made for any book in print to be added to a library if only one of these criteria, such as readability, is the sole one that must be met for purchasing library material. Before adopting this selection criteria, the board would do well to consider increasing the number of categories required to purchase a book. And I think that limiting pornographic material, for example, and some level of obscenity and excessive drug references would be applicable here. It's also a bit odd that the Library Materials Review Committee policy on page 5 essentially prohibits any community member who has requested review of a book from serving on the review committee. Furthermore, I think it should be spelled out that student representatives on the committee should be 18 years old if the books in question have explicit content. I look forward to seeing how the board will adapt this policy to make it more useful in promoting a high standard for library content in the Faribault School District. I further encourage members of the board not to be fearful about taking measures to protect young people from grooming by normalization of drug abuse, risky sexual behaviors, rape, incest, and sex trafficking through book content aimed at preteens and teenagers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hackett.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our public comment. So we will now move to item number 6, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Ms. Steves. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Brings us to item 7, District Advisory Committee. There is no report tonight. And now on to number 8, Policy Committee. So 8A is the Policy Committee minutes. Ms. Steves or Ms. Moore, is there anything you'd like to highlight here or talk about before we get into all of the actual policies?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With the policy committee, we were asked to look through the revisions, except for 2 policies, because then I think it was the cell phone policy and the school resource policy. Those are new policies. So at the policy committee, we were simply asked to look through the revisions. And so I just want to make that note. But when down farther, when we're looking at the policies, I read the whole policy. And so that's, many of my revisions are not from the policy committee revisions. So it's from the other parts of the policy. I just want, does that make sense?
I'm with you. I can't speak for all the other board members,
Okay,
but I'm
yeah,
tracking
we
you.
just looked at the revisions and not the whole policy. But then as a board member, I looked at the whole policy, all these, 42 of them? So that's where many other revisions come in, except for one, and I think I noted that one at the policy committee. I said I had a problem with that policy, so. I think, Ms. Steves, I don't know if.
Yeah, there was a healthy chunk of policies that we reviewed, but we did get through all of them with the addition of the new cell phone policy and the SRO policy. Again, great meeting. Minutes reflect the outcome of that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for Ms. Moore, Ms. Steves regarding policy committee minutes? All right. Hearing none, we will move to item 8B. Consider approval of revisions to the following policies reviewed by the policy committee at August 6th. So just for all you people tuning in late, this could seem a little choppy to the people watching online, if you will. We are going to take all the policies. I'll read each one that we are not going to have a question or an amendment for, and we'll take all those and make a motion and move forward with a vote on those, and then we'll come back and we'll start at the top of the page and we'll work our way down through the questions and through the amendments. All right, so I will entertain a motion for the approval of Policy 102, Equal Educational Opportunity, Policy 204, School Board Meeting Minutes, Policy 207, Public Hearings, Policy 413, Harassment and Violence, Policy 419, Tobacco-Free Environment, Possession and Use of Tobacco, Tobacco-Related Devices, and Electronic Delivery Devices, Vaping Awareness and Prevention Instruction, Policy 507, Corporal Punishment, Policy 509, Enrollment of Non-Resident Students, Policy 512, School-Sponsored Student Publications and Activities Policy, Policy 513, Student Promotion, Retention, and Program Design, Policy 521, Student Disability Non-Discrimination, Policy 535, Service Animals in School, Policy 602, Organization of School Calendar and School Day, Policy 607, Organization of Grade Levels, Policy 609, Religion and Religious and Cultural Observances, Policy 614, School District Testing Plan and Procedure, Policy 615, Testing Accommodations, Modifications, and Exemptions for IEPs, Section 504, Policy 619, Staff Development for Standards, Policy 620, Credit for Learning, Policy 624, Online Instruction, Policy 709, Student Transportation Safety Policy, Policy 802, Disposition of Obsolete Equipment and Material, and Policy 806, Crisis Management Policy. With that said, I will entertain a motion for all of those that I just read, and hopefully you heard them all, so I don't have to read them again.
Could you read them again, please?
So I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
That was Ms. Boudreau. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion regarding, I believe there are roughly 23 policies there that I just read? Any
Mr. Chair.
questions? Yes, Mr. Olson.
Yes, is it necessary to have so many policies in one meeting? Can these be divided up in the future type of thing? Is it legally, because I know throughout the year we update policies, 4 or 5 at a time or something. This is getting to the point of being ridiculous.
Mr. Olson, wonderful question. We'll defer to Mr. Benty. I believe when we talked about this a month or so ago, a lot of these are revision and mandated by the state or the federal government, and we're supposed to have them in place before school starts. Is that correct?
There is a combination here of, there are revisions that come from MSBA to meet state statute. Some of them do need to be in place before the school year begins, some do not. So we took all of the revisions that MSBA sent to us and decided to go through them at once. So that there's a difference between revision, review, and new. Revision of a policy, we only look at the red lines that come, we only look at the changes that come from MSBA, usually based on legislature or statute, sometimes on court cases if those are decided. Right? If it is a review, we have a cycle that's about every 3 years, policies come up for review. In that situation, the policy committee will look at the entire policy. And then anything that is new, we will then look at the entire policy as well before it moves on to the board. So could some of these have been held off? They could have been, but it was also easier to get a lot of these revisions out of the way so that we could also get into some of the reviews and also focus on 606.5, which is library materials, which I know that the board is going to have quite a few questions about moving forward as well. So.
Mr. Olson, does that help with your question?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Any other discussion? Mr. Benty, correct me if I'm wrong, some of these, I don't know if mandatory is the right word, but some of these we have to have on our books to be in compliance with state law and or federal law. Is that correct?
That is, yes, some of these are mandatory policies, yes.
And is there any way of us knowing which ones are mandatory?
So in the minutes, it says which is mandatory and which is not.
In the policy committee minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we want to maybe possibly refer to that when we get to the questions and amendments and we discuss those, maybe not. So, okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'm having difficulty getting into the internet, and so I may have some challenges reading the policies, just letting you know.
Okay. I don't know if
This
we,
may be helpful because
yeah.
it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
Ms. Boudreau, any other questions on these initial ones?
No.
You're good with that?
Thank
Okay.
you.
So we do have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Ms. Boudreau.
I'm in.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, just bear with me here while I do my little bit of housekeeping so I can try to stay on top of this. Okay, we're now going to move back up to the top of the page, policy 104. And what we'll do is we'll look for a motion and a second, and then we'll open it up for question, comment, Ms. Moore. So, policy 104, school district mission statement. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Ms. Steves with a motion, I'll second. Okay, Ms. Moore, I'll turn it over to you for your questions.
Yes, and again, with the policy committee, we looked at simply the revisions, and the only revision was in the legal references. But I did read the whole policy, and I guess the problem I'm having is just with the term equitable. I think at some point, and this is going to be kind of a theme of mine, at some point we need to I don't know if it's a policy in place to define some of these terms in clear operational definitions. And I think it was at one of the committee meetings we did, that it was I think equity or equitable was defined. I think Miss Bedrow, you were at that meeting, weren't you? I think it was defined. I can't remember. But I think we should do it at a district level, so we know, have maybe one policy. This is the definition of terms. So if a parent or someone, in the community wants it, what does this mean? And I think it has to be clear and defined. And so that's my problem with that. And that's kind of a theme with quite a few of the questionable ones, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion around policy 104? All right, hearing none, we have a motion by Ms. Steves, a second by myself. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. And Mr. Chair, the reason I'm saying it, because I want to make sure I understand what the term is before I vote on something. So
Fair enough,
that's
thank
my
you.
problem. which
Mr.
will be a
Olson, I want to
theme.
confirm you voted in favor for or against?
Against.
So that was 4-2, is that correct? All right, motion passes 4-2, thank you. Okay, this brings us now to policy 418. This is one where Ms. Moore is going to make a motion for an amendment. As of now, we're going to entertain a motion to approve it as it's written. So this is policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school. I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Robichaud. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second by Ms. Steves. Further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. On your little packets here, and I actually grouped them according to topic, parental knowledge and consent. It was under 6, but there's 2 6s, and it should be 7.A.2, and it's under enforcement, page 418-4. I would like to add 2 amendments, and they're in red. I would like to say, with parental guardian knowledge and consent, students may be referred to drug or alcohol assistance or rehabilitation programs provided by school-based mental health service providers. And then as a separate sentence would be students may be referred to law enforcement officials when appropriate. And it's on that packet, so, because I think it's very important that we, for parental knowledge and consent, I think it's a very important issue, especially for the parents. So-
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. So Ms. Moore has made an amendment to policy 418. She just read it. Do we have a second to her amendment?
Second.
Okay, so now I apologize here if I'm going to do this poorly, as Mr. Bellingham, who usually helped me out with all the Roberts rules, is not here tonight. But we're going to do our best, and we'll try to be consistent. So we have a motion for an amendment by Ms. Moore. We have a second by Mr. Olson. Further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chair, do we have any clarity if there's somewhere else listed that parental consent would be required for referring students to alcohol rehab programs or mental health services or the other drug or alcohol rehab? Did I already say that? Anyway, do we have any that listed anywhere? Does Mr. Benty know that, or are we not required to inform parents about this?
So the practice piece would be that anytime that you have a student that is going to be in violation of our drug or alcohol or cannabis policies that we have on file, the parents are going to be contacted. So that is just the natural practice of things. Because there's going to be school consequences that are put in place, and we are required to make contact home with parents and guardians around that. So we would not refer to an outside agency without discussing that with the parents or guardians as well, so.
Mr.
How
Chair?
does this
Oh, I'm
relate
sorry.
to the age of medical consent?
So those have changed, I know, in the last legislative piece. I think that it would still, we would look at it as different issues. The parents would be brought in on the consequences and concern side of it, so they would have knowledge of that. I think we need to figure out more from our attorneys on the age of consent based off of the new legislative pieces, because it's not just 18 anymore.
It hasn't been 18 for quite some time,
And I believe it differs depending on what it is we're talking about.
the medical situation.
Yes.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Benty, this section of this policy relates to enforcing when someone violates something within our school. This is about enforcement. I just want to get clarity.
Yes,
because
yes, it
it
is.
looks like it's enforcement, and our policy, or maybe it's not written, is to inform parents and engage parents in these decisions.
So the enforcement piece would be in a sense that an act has been committed, and it has been committed either on school grounds or has come onto school grounds. So that is a little bit different than a student that would come in and say to their counselor, to a teacher, to an administrator, I have a drug problem or I have an alcohol problem. I am looking for help. Can you? That's a whole different piece around it than the enforcement piece. And this is entitled simply for enforcement, correct?
Okay.
Mr. Benty, this one, I'm looking at the policy committee minutes. 418 does appear to be a mandatory policy.
Yes.
If we would not pass this policy, what happens? Do we just revert back to what we currently have in place, but then we're in violation of state statute, or
That is
or what
correct. So
happens?
any policies that are not voted in favor of this evening simply revert back to their pre-revision form. So you would go to the file, basically you would look at this policy, take out whatever's red in here, and that would be the policy that we would revert back to.
However, if we do that on any of these policies, this one included, we're then not in accordance with state statute? Would that be safe to say, because we didn't update it?
So that's when you have to look at the legal references.
Oh.
So if the legal references have changed and you see red in the legal references, then that means that they have changed to be in line with a new statute or court case potentially. If there's nothing there, then it's simply a change from MSBA
Okay,
based on what their attorneys say.
thank you. Well, I'm glad we have a policy committee that puts in the time and effort to review this stuff, because
Mr. Chair,
Thank
but
you.
this was not part of the revision. This was, as I said, we only looked at what was in red, and I don't think 418.
okay,
As I said, I read the whole
okay. But
policy.
this one does look like it passed unanimously in the committee. 6-0 vote, it appears, from the minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
this is current policy, is what I think I'm hearing. The non-red area. No? Or yes?
The policy that you have in front of you, if you ignore the red, that is what is current policy for Faribault Public Schools.
Okay, got it.
And according to the minutes, it's denoted that MSBA adds protection for persons in Minnesota Patient Registry Program. That's what's denoted in the minutes, so. Okay, other questions or comments regarding the amendment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess my stand here is I know throughout the nation, and especially in Minnesota too, that parental rights, it seems, and parental responsibilities are under attack. I believe so. And I think just adding this amendment would be an added safeguard for parental knowledge and consent. So I guess I'm taking a stand here, and so.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so a vote in favor of the amendment? Yes, Mr.
I just
Wilk.
have a comment. I don't think parental rights are being under attack. I think that's a misstatement. I think that there's a factor that our students do have rights also. And I think we've got to be very sensitive to the rights of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that Ms. Moore is being careful and cautious. But just to clarify and verify, our practice here is that we include the parents in this situation. We inform them.
For the enforcement piece, yes,
What
that
we're
is
talking
correct.
about is the enforcement.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Just for clarity, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this amendment?
Could I ask for a roll call?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So we're on the amendment piece right now
Mhm.
of policy 418. A yes vote is in favor of the amendment. A no vote is not in favor of the amendment, and then we would default back to the regular policy 418. Any questions on that?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, yes. A yes vote right now at this time would be in favor of the amendment that Ms. Moore proposed. A no vote, would be not in favor of the amendment that Ms. Moore proposed. Make sense? Okay. If we want to do a roll call, we're just going to work around the room here. So,
For the amendment?
for the amendment, yes, Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud,
No.
Ms. Boudreau,
Yes,
Ms. Steves.
I didn't get Ms. Moore's.
I'm sorry, Ms. Moore is
Yes.
in favor of the amendment?
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud is not in favor of the amendment? Ms. Boudreau is in favor of the amendment? And now
I'm
it's you.
gonna abstain from voting. I'll make my comments later.
Okay, Mr. Olson, we'll go to you, and then we'll come back to me.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a no, so that's 1, 2, 3, that's 3-2, and an abstention goes with the yes, so that means 4-2, that amendment is now in there.
It is in there, you said, or not?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, what was it? You said the
The
amendment
vote,
is in?
It will reflect 4-2, so the amendment is now included in policy 418, and now we'll go
Okay.
back and vote on policy 418 with the amendment, correct, Mr. Benty? Is that your understanding?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, let me just make notes here.
And then a roll call, please.
I'm not sure if I can make my comments now, so we've talked about it a couple of times about a procedure in which amendments can be presented. To be quite honest with you, I'm not following along with the amendments and the policies, and I need some sort of procedure in which we can review these and I can do my own due diligence. I don't feel comfortable either way. Mr. Benty hasn't reviewed these with our attorney. I guess that's just my comment.
Mr. Chair, I guess I didn't realize that I did send these in on Friday afternoon, so I was hoping people would get it out, but our chair is gone.
Right,
So-
I saw the
You
emails
said you just found out, yeah.
at 5:40 this morning, so I did not see them, and hence I did not share them. Mr. Benty, have you shared them?
With you,
With me, yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So, we're now back to policy 418 with the amendment that Ms. Moore proposed. And so,
Mr. Chair?
yes, Ms. Moore.
I just want to make a clarification. It was on 6.A.1, page 418-4. It said, respect community values and encourage students to communicate with parents. I guess my question is, what community values are we looking at? I think we need to define that as well. I'd like to know what the community values are. And I think at some point, Mr. Benty, have we ever had a survey out in the community, or I don't know. That's my question. I just had some clarification or a question on that.
I would assume community values in relation to this policy would be, we don't want students to be using drugs, especially in our classrooms, right?
correct.
Okay, so we are at policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school, with the amendments that Ms. Moore stated. Do we have a motion? I believe now we need a motion and no, we're good?
But you can vote
We can vote.
on the main motion as amended.
Okay.
So the amendment has gone through.
No, it's just the one amendment, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just had that clarification.
Yep,
So
thank you.
So now
So-
we're at the vote.
With the amendment.
As
Ms.
amended.
As amended.
As amended,
As
yep.
amended, okay.
Ms. Kenny, can I ask you a question? If somebody wanted to make a motion to table it, is it too late, or can that be done where we're at right now? Does anybody know that? And I apologize, I do not.
I don't.
You can take a
Requires
motion
a
to
second.
table it,
It's not
but there has to be a
debatable.
specific date of when it has to be brought back.
But we'd still have to, like, you have a motion.
Yep.
We have to vote on the motion.
So you'd have to act on this motion first.
And if we want to table
Before
it,
you
we'll come
table
after
it.
it. Okay, so we're acting on the motion of, we do have a motion in a second, as the amendment is stated. All, any further discussion? You said your comments. Any further discussion? Mr. Benty, question for you. We're changing the wording in a policy that is mandatory. Do you have any legal concerns with this changing of the policy? Might this open us up to any potential ramifications?
Anytime we change policy, it opens us up for potential ramifications. The one piece here is that if we had an administrator that did not follow this for some reason or another, then it would open us up, because we are now moving from practice to policy.
Okay.
Practice we can change here and there. It's at the discretion of the administrator on how we deal with individual pieces, depending on individual students. Policy, we can't. So that, given, some odd circumstance or something, if the administrator were to decide, no, I'm not going to bring the parents in on this one, then they would be in violation of policy.
Okay. Ms. Moore, while I respect your thoughts and whatnot, I will be voting no against this simply because of we haven't had a chance to have this approved by our legal counsel, and I just simply don't want to open ourselves up to any type of legal recourse that we don't need to. That's just my thoughts. Mr. Robichaud?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I want to go to Ms. Steve's comment also about age of majority. If I'm 18 years old and I don't want my parents involved or notified, do I have that right?
Under this amendment, no, you do. Well, you have that
Then
right.
we're violating that student's rights.
We could potentially be in violation of that student's rights based on the new legislation that was passed this past spring by the state legislature.
But again, for clarity's sake, is if a student has drugs or alcohol within our school buildings or out in their car, for example, they're under the age of 18, we would be notifying the parent or guardian if that happened.
Yes. Because it would be the enforcement piece it would be the consequent piece of the enforcement,
Which is the policy.
which is the section of the policy that you were looking at, correct?
Any other questions or comments on policy 418 and the amendment that we have a motion and a second for?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to belabor this issue, but if I read the paper that Ms. Moore has handed out, I don't see this as a punitive. I see it, this is what you're adding: with parental, guardian, knowledge, and consent, students may be referred to drug or alcohol assistance or rehabilitation programs. I don't see that I see that more as, I as a staff member see the student in need of some assistance. I don't see this as a punitive kind of statement. I don't know where we're coming up with punitive types of things.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I guess I just would say that because if you read through it, it says students may be referred to drug and alcohol assistance or rehabilitation programs, and it said provided by school-based mental health services. I think if a student is referred to a mental health because of the drug or alcohol, I think a parent needs to be informed and consent, so. I'll go back to that again, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments,
No,
discussion?
ready for the question.
What's that?
I'm ready for the
You're ready?
question.
Okay, okay.
Call the question.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Of the amendment, right?
Well, the amendment's already part of it now.
Yeah, so, okay, gotcha.
Yep, and you want to you asked for a roll call
Yes,
on this?
for all of these.
So this is going to be policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school, with the amendment that passed 4-2. And we'll do a roll call. We'll start, once again, just work our way around the room. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud?
No.
Ms. Boudreau?
Aye.
Ms. Steves?
No.
No. Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Myself, no. So that's a tie, 3-3. It now fails to move on because it was a tie. Correct? Thank you for keeping us on our toes. We can now go back to the original policy 418, or we can look to table it. Is that correct? No? Well, I'm gonna make a motion to table 418. I gotta put a specific date?
Yep.
When's our next business meeting? Can somebody,
We've already voted on it, but we can bring it back. I mean, I don't think you need to vote to table it, because you've already dealt with it.
Yeah, we voted on it.
so it's just simply tabled?
No, yeah, it's just, no.
It
So we-
failed.
So
We
can
refer
bring it
back to our
We
old
need to-
policy.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Will the policy committee re-examine this and bring this back forward again?
So I think what we will do now, Ms. Kenny and I is reach out to MSBA and potentially our attorneys to say, if we stick with our old policy, are we in any violations? And then if we are, then we'll bring it back to either the board or policy committee.
And if we need to revote, we'd look to revote in September, October, whenever.
You can reconsider it.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry for any confusion out there, everyone. This is a learning exercise for myself at a minimum, so. Okay, this brings us now to policy 425, staff development. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. With that, I'll open it up for discussion. Ms. Moore, this is one that you had requested
Yes,
some
I have
further
to.
clarification on.
Yes, and I actually, it's on I should have numbered my pages, but it's on the fourth page. 425, we are in right, staff development and mentoring. I guess I just would like to make some comments here and clarifications. Under 3.B.4.C, page 425, 2, dash 2, it says provide an inclusive curriculum for racially, ethnically, linguistically, and culturally diverse, they talk about that. I'd like, I guess for clarification, again, I think we need a policy. What does inclusive curriculum entail? What is culturally diverse? And I did look up actually culture, and culture really is a set of, and I teach this, of attitudes, beliefs, and values. And, but it's also, if you look at cultures, there's actually, one source says there's over 3,800 cultures, and one source says there's between 5,000 and 6,000 cultures. So I guess we really need to start defining these terms, and that's my problem. Also, under 6D was 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera, pages 425-5, 426-6. Isn't that discrimination? This goes back to the BIPOC thing again. We've discussed that. I guess I'm just feeling that it is discrimination against one race.
Okay,
I think,
thank you.
And
Ms.
that's it.
Ms. Moore, are you looking for an answer from Mr. Benty in terms of what does
what I am-
inclusive curriculum and what
What I
does
am
culturally
saying is that I
diverse?
think we actually need some really definitive operational definitions for some of these terms. And that's, I guess, where I'm coming from. Right now, I don't think we have them. Like I said, what is culturally diverse? We've got, some sources say between 5,000 and 6,000 cultures. I think in research, you have to be very careful with operational definitions. You have to have a clear defined, and I don't think we do in some of these policies. And that's my recurring theme, and I'll just keep stating it. So
Okay,
I think we need a policy. And also, I feel it's discrimination too.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Benty,
That's it.
you're catching all that, what she's talking about and asking for at some point here, and we're
Well,
wondering
and,
about-
and I'm thinking back, the board was going to have a retreat to go through and do a Faribault school board definition of terms that it was going to name at a later date. That retreat never happened.
Yeah.
So that would be information that I know Cabinet and myself would be very interested to look at, is what definitions is the school board looking to entertain for some of these, because they do not, most of them do not come with definitions from the state. So,
Okay, thank you. That's probably on my fault for not scheduling a retreat, but I'm no longer board chair, so I'll pass it on to Mr. Bellingham or whoever
It's not your
succeeds.
fault anymore.
What's that?
It's not your fault anymore.
Well, it is my fault probably,
your
but
fault.
that's all right.
It's your fault.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we do have a motion and we do have a second for policy 425, staff development.
And for all of these, I'd like a roll call, please.
Roll call, okay, we'll honor that. We're going to start over there again, Ms. Moore.
No.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
Aye.
Ms. Boudreau?
Aye.
Yep, bear with us here. Ms. Steves?
Aye.
Mr. Olson?
No.
I am a yes, so that passes 4-2. If we're getting out of order, please just stop us, slow
You're
us
going
down.
slowing, slow enough for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one on here, so that passes 4-2. The next one on here is policy 506, student discipline. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do we have a second?
Second.
That was Ms. Boudreau.
Yes.
Thank you. Further discussion, Ms. Moore.
Yes, I was trying to look at this one here. 506, oh, yeah, okay, I got it. Hang on a second. I'll go back to my old, the problem I'm having with this policy is 506, because of the social and emotional learning. I'm not going to regurgitate what I've said before. I can just say I've passed this out a number of times about what SEL is. It's a delivery system of social emotional learning. I've also looked up with CPL Action. It says social emotional, and I'm just going to read a couple things, is the umbrella for social engineering concepts that have infiltrated our school systems with various names: critical race, diversity, equity, DEI, comprehensive sex education. It's also a data collection system. It also goes by the name of knowledge-based learning, literature-based, data-driven program, multi-tiered system. And it does have, another concern I have, is there's continual surveys on, what the students feel, whatever it is. And I'm asking the question, is this data mining? So another thing, and it's based on, according to Castle, I think the SEL is based on Castle. It's a leading national developer, promoter, and funder of SEL. And they talk about mindfulness, education. It has many names. So I have a problem with social emotional learning with this one.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
That's
Moore.
it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Further discussion?
Perhaps social emotional learning can be added to the definition conversation. 'Cause
Oh, that is a good idea, yeah, for this district definitions, you're saying? Yeah. Okay, but right now, I don't see it as that, and I'm having a problem with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, this policy seems to focus on the school resource officer changes as well as some unscheduled student removal from class. This is what it focuses on. Those are changes that are adopted, and it simply encourages the school to adopt a policy on parental notification for unscheduled student removal from class. So these are the additions that we are dealing with right now.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Roll call again is your request. So, Ms. Moore, we'll start with you.
No.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
Ms. Boudreau?
Aye.
Ms. Steves?
Aye.
Mr. Olson?
No.
Myself, yes, so it passes 4-2. Okay, moving down to policy 514, bullying prohibition. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ms. Boudreau. We'll open it up for discussion. Ms.
Okay.
Moore?
Got me out of the, let me see. Excuse me a little bit, because I had them in my order, but now we got to put them in a different order. So I believe, I can find it here.
This is one you had a question on when we spoke earlier.
Yes, and if I could find it here. I think this is another one with the social, emotional, and learning too. Let me find it here. I had them according to topic, so bear with me here.
It appears
Yes,
this,
this is the one with the SEL in it too. So
Okay.
it's the same discussion.
same comments as before?
Yeah, same discussion.
Okay, any other discussion on this policy 514? All right. Hearing none, Ms. Moore, we'll start with you on a roll call.
Okay, no.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
Ms.
Aye.
Boudreau? Ms. Steves?
Aye.
Mr. Olson?
No.
And I will vote in favor, yes. So 4-2. Motion passes 4-2. Okay, now this brings us to policy 516, student medication and telehealth. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Further discussion? Ms. Moore?
Yes. Okay, and this was on, if you look under 516, I think this is on, again, I apologize, I should have had, I think it's on page 2. 516, under 3.A.1, page 516-1. It did, and I did overlook this, I inadvertently missed this at the policy committee, and I'm sorry about that, but it says the administration of medication or drugs at school requires a completed signed request from the student's parent, and it stopped there. I think we need to add guardian too. That's one of the amendments.
Is that the only amendment?
No, there's actually 3 more.
Ms. Moore, based on the handout that you gave us for 516, I believe you have 4 amendments.
Oh, 1, 2, 3, yeah, there's 3, correct.
I'm seeing 4.
Can we handle them all at once or not? I don't know.
516-1, 516-2, 516.
Yes, and
Yeah, I'll welcome you. I'll allow you to read each one of them, and we'll
should
take
I
them.
read each one?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
that's the only way you're going to sway a
Yep.
vote, I think, is so they know about it.
Okay. Under 3.A.3.C, page 516-2, I would like to delete used in connection with services for which a minor may give effective consent. I guess my rationale for that is how can a minor give effective consent without parent guardian knowledge and consent? Is this a good idea? It says a minor can give consent. So my problem is that I don't think a minor is mature enough to give consent for either mental health for services or any kind of services. So I would like to just eliminate that one. Can we move on to the next one?
Yes, go ahead.
Under
sorry.
3.A.3.H, page 516-2, it says, provided or administered by a public health agency to prevent or control a disease or a disease outbreak. I'm thinking if there's, for instance, something like COVID, where the public health can come in and start giving vaccinations, I think they need to give it with parental consent and knowledge. Because one of the things, what if that student is, with a vaccine, if that student is allergic to something, The parent would know that. The student may not know that. So I'd like to add, in all cases under 3.A.3.H, parental guardian knowledge and consent must be given.
Can
And
I
under
just-
4, I'm sorry, under
Can
4.
I just ask for a
Yep.
point of clarification?
Mhm.
Are you talking a student under the age of medical consent or a student under the age of 18?
I think under the age of 18. Because some students, some are more mature than others. And I know the brain doesn't really fully develop till mid-20s. So I think we need parental guardian knowledge and consent. Under 4.D. Page 516-7. And this is one that we did talk about at the policy committee, and I was voted down, so I'm bringing it up again. This is: a school may require a student requesting access to space under this section to submit to the school a signed and dated consent from the student, parent, or guardian, or from the student if the age is 16 or older. I'd like to say that it's 18. I think, as I said, a 16-year-old, I don't think is mature enough to give consent for any kind of mental health services. And I think this should be something between the personal family doctor and the parent and guardian. So to me, this is a violation of parental rights and responsibilities. And I think slowly they are being eroded in this state and probably across the nation. So that's it.
So, in relation to your first point of adding,
Point of order, we need a second. So we've got, she's
Be-
making a motion.
okay.
Before we can discuss.
Before we
it.
discuss, thank you, Ms. Kenny.
yes.
So we have a motion by Ms. Moore for 4 different amendments in policy 516. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Okay, Ms. Steves.
The first point of adding guardian, very much appreciative, support that portion of the amendment. So, again, I hear what you're saying, and I go back and forth. I worked in the medical industry for just about a decade, and I dealt with the age of medical consent as it was changed from 17 to 16 to some instances to 13 years old. The only things that children, minors, age 16 to 18 can make decisions for their own accord are pregnancy and pregnancy prevention, sexually transmitted diseases and infections, substance use and abuse, mental health, and sexual assault. So as it's defined in your amendments to the policies, and when I asked for the point of order, if you were talking about the age of 16 to 18 or just everyone under 18, I guess I'm not supportive of the other points outside of the first 516-1 of adding guardian. As a parent of young kids, I get it. I'm making my child's appointments, and most of the time I'm paying for them as well. But we have to think of the students who potentially have been sexually assaulted and are discussing that in their mental health visits, who are pregnant because of a sexual assault. If they've been, assaulted by a family member, that creates a whole host of other issues of privacy. Again, I go back and forth, but at the end of the day, for me, teaching my kids to make informed and wise decisions is the route that I decide to take as a parent. And that includes, seeking out medical information and looking and weighing the pros and cons. Again, I'll be voting no in the entirety of this, unless we can get the first point, again, of adding guardian to parent and guardian.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Boudreau.
I'm okay with the first amendment, but the second amendment appears to be statutory language. 121A.22, the administration of drugs and medicine, that has the same language, a lot of the same language under exclusions. And it says used in connection with services for which a minor may give effective consent. It really parallels the same language we have here. So I don't know about amending it as far as, I mean, it is new language. And I think we have to adhere to the statutes, that's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Ms.
I
Moore.
just want to mention, this is a personal experience. My daughter, who's in another district, she took my granddaughter in for, I think she was 15, and they would not let her see the records, and she was very upset about that. And she, as a parent, was very upset. Luckily, my granddaughter says, well, sure, my mom can see the records. I would like another point, too. This was in California, and I do have I don't think I have it with me today, but there was a child that committed suicide, a girl, and the child committed suicide, and because she was, I can't remember the problem she was having or anything, but the school knew about it, and the school did not let the parents know. And now the parents are suing the school district. So I think there is a problem with parents not being informed, and this led actually to a suicide. And this district is, and I can get that, it was in California. I have it here. I don't know if I have it here, right here, but I can get it. So that's why I'm very concerned about all of this, what is coming down nationally and at the state level especially. So I guess that's why I feel I need to make a stand.
Okay, thank you. So we're still on discussion of Ms. Moore's amendment. Do we have any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
I'll support this. Me and my wife, we're the guardians for my grandson. We had to do that because his mother was murdered in Texas. So it was our responsibility to raise his child, and he's a senior this year. You are cutting the parents out. If you vote no for this, then I feel sorry for you. I really feel sorry for you. And this will become a point in this election that you don't support parents to get their permission. Parents have to be informed of what's going on in the school. I've always got the information. You go and you ask for it. And they give it to me. You give it to any parent. And this is really important for their learning. Involves the parents in the schools. Sometimes I wonder if they want parents in schools, but I'll be voting for this, and this will definitely become an issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Benty, as I review this in the policy minutes, this is a mandatory policy. It does appear that there was actually a motion by the policy committee to add, I'm reading this, quote, unquote, with parental or guardian consent, and I believe that was added to section 3.A.3.H. So I believe that's already stated in this policy from what I'm reading in the minutes. I don't know if anybody, Ms. Steves, do you believe that to be accurate?
Yes.
Or that's what you're all seeing?
Mr. Chairman, it is in our language
Yeah.
within the blue.
Okay.
And above that, it says the provisions of 3A3 are optional. The school board may choose to include or exclude any of the provisions specified. These exclusions appeared in previous versions of this model policy.
Okay.
So we have apparently not concerned with violating any state statute here.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Olson, I believe it's already in there, from what I'm seeing here in front of us. So with that, any other discussion? This is a vote on Ms. Moore's amendment, where she has in the amendment, she has 4 different language changes. A vote in favor, a yes vote is in favor of all 4 changes. A no vote is not in favor of the changes. Other questions? Is that clear or is that confusing? This is the amendment.
The amendment, Mr. Chairman, is the amendment include all 4? Or
Yes.
are they separate?
Yes,
Oh,
it
okay.
includes all
Thank
4.
you.
Okay? All right. Ms. Moore,
Yes, I'm for the amendments.
thank you. Mr. Rosha,
Nay.
Ms. Boudreau,
Aye.
Ms. Steves,
No.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
I am a no. The amendment fails 4-2. No, I'm sorry. It
No,
fails
3-3.
3-3. I'm sorry.
3-3.
Thank you for the correction. Fails 3-3. And so now we're back to the original policy, 516, excuse me, student medication and telehealth. So, we'll do a roll call again, if that's what you prefer. Ms. Moore?
Clarification.
Yes, Mr. Olson?
Is the word guardianship in it or not?
The word, I'm reading right from the policy minutes that's in our attachment, and I'm going to read it again, that it was passed, Mr. Olson, to add that language. It passed unanimously, 6-0 at the policy committee. It was moved by Ms. Moore, seconded by Ms. Little, to add, quote, unquote, with parental or guardian consent to section 3.A.3.H. That's right from what's.
So that's
in
right
board.
now what we're voting on that has been added.
That is included,
Okay.
yes.
So, yes, Mr. Chair, I think at the policy committee, I did look at when I went on the agenda, I looked to see, and it wasn't changed on the agenda, so maybe that's where the confusion was. But yeah, so that is the parent and guardian, but the other 3 amendments are not. Okay.
Okay, so that is in there. So,
Understand.
Ms. Moore, back to the original 516, student medication and telehealth.
No.
No? Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
Aye.
Ms. Boudreau, thank you. Ms. Steves?
Aye.
Mr. Olson?
Aye.
So now that passes 5.
You didn't
What?
state your vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm an aye. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. 5-1. That passes 5-1. Thank you. Okay, now we're down to policy 522, Title IX, sex non-discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process. I will entertain a motion to approve this. Actually, I'm going to move to table this until this is August, till our September meeting, when we have a full board to be able to hear the conversation around this. So that's my motion to table policy 522.
Second.
I made a motion, second by Ms. Moore. Any further discussion? Once again, this would come back at our September full business meeting. Do we need a date?
You do
Actually,
need a date if you're going to table, yes.
Can somebody help me with a date on that, please?
Business meeting?
Yeah, business meeting.
Mr. Chair, is discussion allowed
No.
on a table?
I don't believe
No
so.
discussion is allowed.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just
No
wondering.
discussion is allowed. What's the date?
23rd.
So I'm moving to table it until September 23rd, when we have a full board here. And I believe, Ms. Moore, are you still good with a second on that?
I think I can't discuss it because one of the things I'm just concerned about is the U.S. Supreme Court and what it has to do with Minnesota statutes. So I think that needs to be cleared up. Yeah.
So you're good with keeping the table until the full board can hear it? On September, what was the date? I'm sorry?
23rd.
Yes.
September 23rd, thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
You're good? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to table until September 23rd. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
That passes 5-1. Okay, thank you. So now we move to policy 524, internet technology and cell phone acceptable use and safety policy. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud and Ms. Boudreau. Further discussion, Ms. Moore?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Under 5.c. page 524-4, I don't know if you, in the essence of time, I'm not going to read that whole paragraph, but it says, this disclosure may serve as a defense, wait a minute. Yeah. In certain rare instances, a user also may access otherwise unacceptable materials, and I'd like to add with parental, guardian, or consent, if necessary, to complete an assignment. My rationale for that would be that the parents may disapprove of some of this material, and therefore the parent or guardian consent must be obtained. Because some of these things, maybe the parent isn't, so again, it goes back to reinforcing parental knowledge and consent.
Okay, so that is Ms. Moore's amendment
Yes.
to policy 524. Do we have a second to her
Second.
amendment? Mr.
Second.
Olson? Further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Seems
Mr.
like a
Olson.
common theme here of parent/guardian. Seems like everybody sort of agrees with that to some degree. In these policies, I want to go through and where is there parent, then maybe should be guardian added to it? Would that go back to the policy committee of all the hundreds of policies? Is that, it seems like we're sort of halfway agreeing that maybe we should extend that to guardianship.
So you're recommending any spot where there's parent essentially / guardian?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
this policy and any policies? is what
Right,
you're
yeah.
recommending. Okay. Mr. Benty, I'm sure has a note taken there and
I'm sure he'll do it by
And,
the time you leave.
we'll discuss later.
Yeah, but this is adding more than just, there's nothing here with that, but.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm saying you have to, that's his recommendation, so. Okay, further discussion regarding policy 524. Regarding the amendment, I'm sorry, Ms. Moore's amendment to 524.
State that amendment again.
Okay. In certain rare instances, a user also may access otherwise unacceptable materials. And I'd like to say with parental guardian consent, if necessary to complete an assignment. I guess my rationale is that if these are unacceptable materials, shouldn't to complete an assignment, whatever, I think the parents should be aware of that. And, some parents may disapprove of some of or all of the material, of the unacceptable material. Therefore, I think parental guardian consent must be obtained. Again, it goes back to parental guardian consent and knowledge, and which I stated before, I think we are, with all due respect to Dr. Robichaud, I think parental guardian, the parents are under attack. I do believe that in our nation and especially within our state. So that's where I'm taking a stand.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any further, Ms. Steves, one second. I think, Ms.
Okay,
Steves, you have
yeah.
your hand up?
I'm still, was this on your list of amendments?
It is.
Yes, it should be on page, it's 524. It's on, if you
Essentially
pack
page
it,
I'm
page
talking
3.
about your amendment.
Yeah, it's on page.
3, Ms. Steves. 524.
Mhm.
While you're reviewing it, Mr. Olson, you had a comment?
It's on TV that there's a class action suit about parents or / guardians suing like Facebook and all those other organizations for damaging their kids. I just wondering what kind of liability do we have if we let our students look at that material?
Do you want me to answer that? Okay.
Absolutely,
So
thank you.
currently, the Faribault Public Schools has a filter on the public access internet. So therefore, social media sites and anything that is deemed by our filter to be pornographic or anything like that is blocked. So it cannot be accessed through our internet at the school. Now, I will say that does not stop someone from being in our buildings with their own data plan. So can items like that be accessed during the school day from a data plan? Yes, but not through our internet.
So this would be, you would include cell phones.
No, because students' cell phones are most likely going to be on their data plans. So if I take out my cell phone right now,
But if they have cell phones on school property and they're looking at,
I cannot filter Verizon's Wi-Fi. I can filter my Wi-Fi.
but we'll be discussing that later on, but if the cell phone's on school property and it's being used and there's some inappropriate content or things what they are going to be suing for, do we have any liability?
So-
Because you've let a cell phone onto school property.
I would say in that case, the answer is no, because, and once again, I need to state, I'm not an attorney, okay? But I would say the answer is no, because cell phones are everywhere, and there would be more of a liability for us to say we are not allowing cell phones on our property.
So it's going to come up later on. Basically, you're saying that we have to let cell phones on our property.
How?
Is that what you're saying or
Is
not?
is that, I'm sorry, is this in relation to this actual amendment? I have no problem having you discuss it later.
Yes, I
but-
think it is.
It's in relation to this amendment? Okay. Okay. Any other questions then you'd like answered or you'd like to clarify?
So are you asking if we will continue to allow cell phones on our property?
Well, it's more about the content if they have a cell phone. But if they don't have a cell phone on the property, they're not looking at inappropriate material or damaging material of what is suggested in the lawsuit. That's what I'm saying. I know we're going to talk about cell
Yeah.
phone policy. I'm not talking about, well, it sort of crosses over a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the content.
So the content is blocked by our
But
filters.
they bring, okay.
So, yeah, and I'll say it again, I cannot filter any content that comes in through any other provider except for our own.
The filter would be no cell phones on our property.
So let me try to
Ms. Steves?
get some clarity for myself and maybe others. So if Mr. Wolf, and this is just an analogy, Mr. Wolf had something inappropriate on his cell phone showing other students, that's what you're talking about?
No, the stuff that they're looking personally themselves.
Okay, so if my cell phone was connected to Faribault Public Schools Wi-Fi and I had something inappropriate or was doing something inappropriate while connected to the Wi-Fi, this is what the policy is in relation to.
That is correct.
Okay,
So if you search for something while on our Wi-Fi that our filter deemed as inappropriate, it would block it.
so if I go like
If you go,
my Wi-Fi is already off.
if you go to
So-
our public access and you try to go to Facebook, it will not load. All right? If you then take the Wi-Fi off and go to your data plan and go to Facebook, it will load. Same thing will happen in any school building.
Okay. So just a suggestion, because I'm I'm confused, conflicted, and I need to do a little bit of due diligence, and I really appreciate, maybe some of the feedback from the attorney. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to table to our next meeting, or
Right now, we have an amendment, so
this
we're,
amendment.
yep, we have an amendment that
Y-
Ms. Moore has
yes.
made and Mr.
And-
Olson has seconded.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make it clear too, it said, in certain rare instances, and this is in order to complete an assignment, a user may otherwise access unacceptable materials. I guess unacceptable materials to me are unacceptable. And if in order to complete an assignment, this is needed for some reason, I think the parents need to be informed.
Okay, thank you. Other
Because they may
discussion?
not want this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I have maybe a question. So we have a policy that does not allow any minors to use our school internet or any kind of material that's obscene or pornographic. So would this deal with adults? Is this about adults then, this paragraph? Because I don't know how it applies to students. Because this is our materials. These are our school users. We're using, they're
Yeah.
using our internet.
So
Our
where,
materials.
or I can give a quick scenario on why this, or how this could be used. I don't ever see it being used because students will simply wait until they get home, or they will go on their personal device on their data plan and find it immediately. So how it would be is usually like in a health class, if they were, you were researching an STD and they were to go on to Google and say, I need to see pictures of said STD. There's a chance that would trigger as sexual in nature on our filter, and it would block all that information. So that student, what this is saying is that student could go to the teacher and say, I'm trying to access information on this STD, the filter is blocking it. Then it would go from that teacher, usually to the principal, to the tech department, to look at it and say, what site are you trying to access? And then they would give them access to that one site. They would not open up the filter to them. They would say, what site are you trying to access? And it would be open to that one site for them for a specific period of
Why
time.
don't the student go to the parents where it should be? They should teach them about that.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to complete that question, so this would, this amendment, if it is applied, would then, in that situation, they would have to call their parent and say, can your son or daughter access this site?
We would most likely have to come up with some type of form that would be signed by a parent or guardian to say, I give this school authority to bypass its own web filter for this specific site, for this specific amount of time, for this assignment, get very specific with it. If the board votes, if the board votes to do this, then I want to make sure that I'm going to run this through our attorneys to make sure that we have all the proper pieces in place. Like I said, it has never come up to my knowledge as all my time as assistant principal and principal at the high school. It has not. That was 9 years worth of time there. It never came up. But I'm not saying that it won't in the future. But I highly doubt it will, simply because the incredibly high percentage of our students that have internet access at home.
Right, and so, Mr. Chairman, I have the internet policy here for our school district, and it says that our computers will, with access to the internet available for use by children under the age of 17, must be equipped to restrict all access by children to material that is reasonably believed to be obscene or child pornographic or material harmful to minors under federal or state law. So it's not, to me, not a problem. I mean, I don't see the problem. I do like the idea to restrict children from this material without their parents' approval, but I don't see that happening here. So
Okay,
I'm good either way.
thank you. Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, we are going to vote for the amendment. A yes vote is in favor of policy 524 with Ms. Moore's amendment. A no vote is a vote not in favor of the amendment. Okay? We'll do a roll call. Ms. Moore, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud?
Nay.
Ms. Boudreau?
No,
Ms. Steves?
I'm sorry, Ms. Moore,
Ms. Moore was a yes.
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud, a no. Ms. Boudreau, a no. And now we're to you.
no.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
And I am a no. So the amendment fails 4-2. And now we're back, excuse me, to the original policy 524, internet technology, cell phone acceptable use and safety policy. We have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Sorry if we didn't do a roll call, but I believe it's Ms. Moore is a no, Mr. Robichaud was
Yes.
a yes, Ms. Boudreau a
Who
yes,
knows?
Ms. Steves, I think you said yes, Mr. Olson a no, and I'm a yes, so that passes 4-2. Okay, that brings us to policy 601, school district curriculum and instructional goals. I'll entertain a motion to approve. I'll make
So
it.
moved.
I'll second. Ms. Boudreau, I'll give you the first. I'll make the second. Further discussion? Ms. Moore, you have an amendment.
Yes, and I have questions too. I'm just going to do the questions first. Again, this is under Roman numeral 4.A.5, Roman numeral 4.A.6B, and Roman numeral 4.A.6C, page 601-3. Again, we need to clarify at a district level, not at a committee level, the terms equitable, cultural, ethnically diverse. And then we go to my amendment under 3, Roman numeral 3.I. It's page 601-2. It says instructional racism means structures, policies, and practices within and across institutions that produce outcomes that disadvantage those who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and I'd like to add the amendment, and whites. Because we cannot be we have to be anti-racist. I don't think we should look at people because of their color. We should look at them as human beings, and I think this discriminates against whites, and I have to say, and whites. That's my amendment.
Okay.
That's it?
I'm sorry here. Just bear with me. I'm making note. Okay, Ms. Moore has made an amendment that she just read. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment. This is policy 601,
601, yes.
and this looks like MSBA removes world's best workforce. Am I reading that right? WBWF? World's
That's
Best?
correct.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like it's a mandatory policy, so, okay. I would assume that what's in here is stated by statute, backed by case law or whatever is referenced.
Yeah, so the legal references and the cross-references are at the end as well, statutes as well as court cases.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Robichaud.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could ask Ms. Moore a question. Can you identify areas where whites are disadvantaged? Why you'd want to include that in this amendment?
I don't want to include it. I just think
Oh, yes, it is. It's in red.
I do want to include and whites because I think,
Can you
well, I'll
tell
tell you, yes, I can in my own experience. My husband, in a job that he was doing in his work, It was because of the affirmative action. Yes, he was, there was discrimination there.
But
Yes,
we're
it
talking
was.
students here.
Well, yes, but
Adults.
I am just saying that we shouldn't be, if we want to be, and I don't believe in racism. And if we don't believe in racism, we should do it for all races. And if you don't do it for all races, you're really racist. So that's my,
Well, the issue is that what they've listed here, black, indigenous, and people of color have historically been involved and disadvantaged. They're trying to correct that. Whites
Well-
have not been disadvantaged.
well, Mr. Dr.
you, Mr.
Robichaud, I think it was in North Africa, if we talk about slavery. Actually, and I can find the articles, blacks were actually enslaving whites. So what I am saying is, we should, if we want to be really anti-racist, we can't pick and choose what race we should be anti-racist with. We gotta have it clean and clear, and I don't think that a person's color should matter. And, so I disagree with you on that, and I think I'm gonna call the question.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, she called the question.
Oh, sorry.
You want to withdraw that?
I'll withdraw it.
Okay. The answer is Jerry is that we did discriminate. I don't know how long ago it was, but with the grant for a drug policy, that I brought that up as that to get basically drug help or counseling, and it mentioned those special groups, and which I voted against, like what white people, white students have alcohol problems and drug problems, and money was only going to go to Hispanics, those protected groups. So that's an example. And we've also had with the trans question, transgender question, that came up. So yes, there are examples. Of course, I've been on the board for a few years, and stuff like this comes up. So
Okay.
those are ones that come to mind. If I sleep on it, I probably come more.
Okay, thank you.
So
Ms. Steves?
the red is what is legally required by state and federal government.
No, the red is what has been revised by MSBA. Some of it based on new statute, some of it based on court cases, some of it based on legal precedent, some of it just to better match language that is in society today as well. So the red is just the revisions.
Further discussion?
And roll call, please.
Ms. Moore, I appreciate your comments. Mr. Robichaud, I appreciate your comments. I won't be supporting it simply for the fact that I would really, really like to lean on our policy committee to have this all sorted out when it gets here. And
Mr.
just
Chair.
one second, Ms. Moore, please. And I really, really hesitate to break MSBA, guidelines, if you will, of what is recommended. I get it. I'm not on the policy committee, but the last thing I want to do is open our district up to any type of legal situation because we change something, a word here or a word there with regards to an MSBA policy that's backed by statute or court case and or by federal. So I'll be voting no on this and potentially others. So, Ms. Moore, you were going to say something?
Yes, I just want to double check here. Actually, with the policy committee, all of these, except for two, the new ones, we were only supposed to look at the revisions. This was
Okay.
not part of the revisions. That's why I'm bringing it up to the
Okay.
school board. So to be clear on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, right now, we have an amendment on the floor to policy 601. Motion by Ms. Moore for the amendment, a second by Mr. Olson. A yes vote will be in favor of adding the amendment. A no vote will not be in favor of the amendment.
Mr. Chair, is there two components to this amendment then?
I don't
No.
believe so.
No, it just adds whites. because
And
I think-
whites
Okay.
is the two
Yes.
words.
Okay,
And whites? It
Right.
should be for all races.
Okay. Any other questions?
What I read on this paper that Ms. Moore gave us, it's "and whites" is what we're
Yeah,
adding, what
correct.
she's
It's
recommending.
the two words, and whites,
so just,
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
So, once again, a yes vote is in favor of adding the two words, which is Ms. Moore's amendment, and whites. A no vote is against adding that and returning back to the original policy as proposed. So, Ms. Moore, we'll go around and we'll do a roll call.
Yes to the amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Robichaud?
Nay,
aye,
Ms. Boudreau?
aye,
Yep, I'm sorry, yep. Ms. Steves?
No.
Mr. Olson?
Aye.
And I'm a no, so that 3-3, the amendment fails 3-3. So now we are back to the original policy 601, school district curriculum and instruction goals. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, we'll go around and do a roll call again.
Okay.
Ms. Moore?
No.
Okay. Mr.
Aye.
Robichaud?
aye.
Ms. Boudreau? Ms. Steves?
Aye.
Mr. Olson?
No.
And I'm a yes, so that passes 4-2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Olson?
just a general, that
Yep.
with the Roberts Rule Orders, of which I read that book, instead of voice, we can use either stand up or raise hand too. That's alternative, just to let you know.
You just looking for a little exercise in this meeting tonight?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate it. You read the Roberts Rule book. I read the Roberts Rule book for dummies, so you're well ahead of me on that.
Did you learn anything?
I got to page 3. We will now move to policy 603, curriculum development. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Do we have a second?
second,
Ms. Steves, a second? Okay, we'll move to further discussion. Ms.
Yeah,
Moore?
Yes, again, just to reiterate, it was, I think just to save time, I'm just going to say that in this policy, they talk about culturally sustaining, cultural awareness. Again, I would like some of these terms to clearly be defined in operational terms. That's my problem.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any further discussions on policy 603?
Oh, just another general, is that, you being the chair right now,
Yeah.
that you could call a special meeting for definitions.
Yeah,
I mean, you could set it up, you've got the authority.
thank you.
Anytime.
Anytime. Okay, further discussion. I have a full schedule, Mr. Olson. I will defer to Mr. Bellingham if he wants to do that and work with everybody to figure out a schedule, but
Weren't you playing golf today?
I was not playing golf today, no, sir. Any other discussion on policy 603? I do appreciate the confidence, though, Mr. Olson.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
Wonderful. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-2. Ms. Moore and Mr. Olson. Okay, we'll move to policy 604, instructional curriculum. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud.
Second,
That was
Linda.
Ms. Boudreau, thank you. Further discussion? Anyone?
Yeah.
Ms. Moore, I saw
Same
your hand go
Again.
up.
Same stuff, call the question.
Same thing.
Okay,
as
same thing.
603.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
No.
I believe that's Ms. Moore and Mr. Olson opposed,
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
trying to speed
Motion.
this up.
Motion passes 4-2. This moves us down to policy 608, instructional services, special education. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So,
Did we, okay, 608, I'm sorry.
608, I'm giving the motion to Ms. Boudreau and the second to
Yeah.
Mr. Robichaud. Okay, further discussion. Ms. Moore, this is one that you
Yes.
said you wanted to propose an
Before,
amendment.
that, when it says special education, I just see a danger sign dealing with special ed. That's,
Okay, I would defer to Mr. Benty on that. Mr. Benty, do you see any issues there? Instructional services dash special education, that's what's stated in front of us.
So I want to make sure that we're reading this correctly.
Yep.
All right, so we're in the responsibilities section of this policy. All right, and this falls under section C of responsibilities. And it says, when such services require or result from interagency cooperation, the school district shall participate in such interagency activities in compliance with applicable federal and state law. The amendment, it says, and with parental guardian knowledge and consent. Mr. Daynard, I believe we have to have consent with any agency that we work with outside of ourselves for any student, not just special education students. So this is, am I correct in saying that? All right, so we would already have to have, by law, we would already have to have parental consent to work with anyone else for any student besides our own agency,
Okay.
which is us.
So, is this correct on here, policy 608, instructional services dash special education? That's what's stated in front of us for approval.
Yes.
That is correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, that's,
okay.
because with the IEPs, that, I want to protect that special education IEPs.
Okay,
As I know, because one of my sons was a special ed student, or had an IEP, you don't want to screw with.
Okay.
You really don't. It just,
other discussion, Ms. Moore, you have something.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just would like to conclude this in here because it is an added safeguard for parents. If it's state law, well, then we should have it in our policy. That's what somebody told me once, so. It's just an added safeguard. And I really believe we need to keep that in there because of the parental.
So, Ms. Moore, I apologize.
I don't see
You,
We're talking about what, 6:00?
608,
Yeah.
you presented us with a packet.
amendment.
Yes, 6:08.
608 is the bottom of page 3, top of page 4 in Ms.
Yes,
Moore's packet.
correct.
Okay, and would you like to read what your
Yes, I'll
amendment
read
is
it,
that you're
yeah.
proposing? Okay.
When such services require or result from interagency cooperation, the school district shall participate in such interagency activities in compliance with applicable federal and state law, and with federal/state law, and with parental guardian knowledge and consent. This is just another added safeguard for parents.
Okay,
and Jerry, but I want to say something that with my son with IEP, I mean,
Do we have a
parental
second?
consent.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, no.
sorry.
Yep, thank you. So she just finished her
Okay,
amendment that she is proposing. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Kenny. Mr. Olson, a second. Okay, Mr. Olson.
okay, before Jerry speaks, because that's his specialty, is that with the IEP, there was so much parental permission. It was just, it's covered. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I know that,
The section you're talking about, I believe you're taking out of context. The interagency cooperation they're talking about is the early childhood McKinley collaboration with Head Start. Head Start is a federal agency independent of the Department of Education. What this is saying is we are still required to look for students with disabilities at Head Start, even though it's not part of our public school system, because it is a federal agency. That's the interagency collaboration. It's not talking about individual parents. It's talking about Mrs. Sage communicating with the director of Head Start, saying this is the process for identifying a student with a disability, and that's the process we follow. All of those contracts and agreements with Head Start are passed through individually with the school board each year annually. So we recommit to that. But this policy is saying that we will follow the applicable child find laws within the agency. It's not a a student, we have to get parent consent before we do any type of assessment. That's in statute, both federal and state. So I don't necessarily think that the school board is required to vote on the Head Start contract. I don't believe we want to ask each individual parent who has a child in Head Start to vote on that contract. That's what you would be requiring, I believe, if you add that statement to this.
Yes, Mr. Daner, thank you for that clarification, because I think I misunderstood interagency. I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe mental health supports or something like this, but this is what you're talking. So I retract my amendment, if I may. I don't know if I can do that right now.
I think it's been
We
seconded.
have a motion and a second.
to vote.
We'll go
You have to
around
vote.
and we'll do a vote, and if it
On the
fails.
amendment.
On the amendment.
So
This
I'll
is a
vote
vote on the amendment. Okay, so a yes vote is in favor of Ms. Moore's amendment. A no vote is not in favor of it. You have a question, Ms. Boudreau?
Is the author allowed to withdraw the amendment?
I believe once a motion and a second has been made, we're gonna stick
So I
to
can
it,
just-
and we'll just roll call it, and if it fails, it fails. And
Okay,
I didn't get to that chapter in the book,
that's
so.
all right.
Okay.
Miss Moore?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
No.
Boudreau? Ms. Boudreau? Ms. Steves?
No.
No.
Mr. Olson, and I'm a no. So that amendment fails 6-0. Now we are back to policy 608, instructional services dash special education. And Mr. Daynard, I want to thank you for clarifying, just speaking to that. So much appreciated. Okay, any further discussion on this policy? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that one passes 6-0.
Yay.
Thank you. We're getting close, ladies and gentlemen.
How
We're
many
getting
more?
close. This is the last one in the big bucket here. Policy 707, transportation of public students. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do we have a second? I will second. With that, I'll open it up for further discussion.
Yes,
Ms.
thank
Moore.
you, Mr. Chair. Under Roman numeral 3.c, it's page 707-2. It says, a homeless student means a student including a migratory student who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime resident, and includes students who are sharing the housing of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or a similar reason, are living in motels, hotels, and it said trailer parks. And so I would like to delete trailer parks, because a lot of people live in trailer parks, and we're just opening up the door to, unless I'm misunderstanding what trailer parks means, it
That-
means living in a trailer, right?
Well, they've changed the name to manufactured home. That's the legal
Well,
yeah, that's
but I
it.
mean, if a student is living in there,
It's
they-
manufactured
they're
home.
not homeless. That's, I guess, my point. And maybe I'm misunderstanding something. But
So, Ms. Moore, you are asking a question, or you are making an
no,
amendment?
well, I am saying
two
delete the
words,
trailer parks. Yeah, because it's the manufacturing.
Okay, we
manufactured
have a
home.
motion by Ms. Moore to, her amendment is to delete the two words trailer parks. Is there a second?
Sure.
Mr. Olson's with a second? Right? Sure means yes?
Yeah.
Okay,
The correct term, I don't know if an amendment to, the correct term is manufactured home by code.
she wants it deleted out of there. That's what you just
No,
approved
no.
of
But it,
trailer parks. Manufactured homes is not in there,
It should be.
correct? Well,
okay, I just want to make sure, because they're saying if somebody lives in a manufactured home, they are homeless, correct? That's the definition.
That's only type of construction.
I do not see manufactured home
No, but I
in
mean,
this.
but if somebody lives in a trailer park, they are not homeless. And that's what it's saying, the definition, if you listen to this, homeless student means, and I'm going to skip through, students who are sharing the housing of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or a similar reason, are living in motels, hotels, or trailer parks. To me, if somebody's living in a trailer park, they're not homeless. That's our,
Nope, thank you.
am my brain getting mushy here?
We get some
uh,
clarity.
Yeah,
Can we
so
get
I
some-
want some clarity.
One second here. You're raising your hand to give some input? We're going to call on someone to help us.
Mhm.
who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And includes, so that's the main piece,
Mhm.
that's the second, so it's saying that they don't have a fixed residence. It could be any sort of those pieces,
Mhm.
even if I invite another family into my
Right.
home, but that's not their permanent home,
Mhm.
that would come as a home.
Right, right.
That's just giving examples of what it could be. A permanent house could be a manufactured home or trailer home. That's different than what
Okay.
this is saying.
Trailer home
Okay,
is
uh,
outdated.
Okay, so, other discussion, we have an amendment that has been made by Ms. Moore, has been seconded by Mr. Olson. Once
Mr.
again, Ms. Moore, I hear what you're saying, I'm gonna vote no against it
Yeah.
simply because I'm not going to overrule what the state and MSBA has put together in their whole process, so.
So I just want to make clear, this isn't going to be just because you live in a homeless, because a student lives in a trailer park, that they're going to be considered homeless, because that could be really a big problem for the schools.
Correct, from
From-
what
and it
Ms. Hull
is-
just read, that
okay,
is
all
not
right.
the case,
Okay,
okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Boudet.
This deals with transportation. If you look in number
Mhm.
8A, homeless students shall be provided with transportation services comparable to other students in the district. So perhaps we do have some trailer parks that are not, right in our vicinity. I think we have to focus that this deals with transportation. It's not about identifying homeless people and categorizing them. It's about making sure all students, whether they have a home, permanent home or temporary home, are able to get to school. And I think with that in mind, I don't really want to remove
Mhm.
that definition through the amendment.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that.
I don't think it's
Diminishing
caused a
services.
problem so far, so
Okay,
I just wanted to, I get sticky on points sometimes, so, as you know.
you said it, I didn't. Anyone else, discussion? Okay, a vote yes is in favor of the amendment, which would be deleting the two words trailer parks. A vote no is not in favor of the amendment. Is that clear? Okay, Ms. Moore, we'll do a roll call, we'll work our way around the room,
No,
okay?
No,
No.
No.
And I'm a no, so the amendment fails 6-0. So now we're back to the original policy 707, transportation of public school students. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? That motion passes 6-0. That concludes
Yay.
item 8B.
Can we take a 5?
Yes, Mr. Olson, we are going to take a 5-minute break. We will reconvene when that clock on the back of the wall says 7:35. 5-minute break, 5-minute recess. Mr. Benty then will lead with the first reading of the new policy 507.5. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us during that 5-minute or so recess. Before we get to item 8C, the first reading of policy 507.5, I apologize. Mr. Robichaud, I think you had your hand up or something. I missed you
Yes.
before we moved
Thank
to
you,
recess.
Mr. Chair. I just want to make a comment in all due respect to Ms. Olson's due diligence in going through these policies and coming up with suggested
You mean
amendments.
Ms. Moore?
Ms. Moore, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Anyway, I apologize for that. But anyway, the due diligence that Ms. Moore goes through in looking at these policies and bringing amendments, I think we have to be sensitive to the integrity of our committees. And we have a committee structure in this district, Finance Committee, Policy Committee. We spent 2 hours on these policies tonight. And I think that we have other factors that we should be looking at. And I would like to recommend that these amendments are thoroughly vetted in the Policy Committee before they come to the board, with a recommendation from the board to either approve the policy as amended or to approve the policy as proposed by whomever, MSBA or the state or wherever it happens to be. But again, in due respect to Ms. Moore and her due diligence, I think we have to honor the integrity of why we have a committee structure. If we want to do this, everything that we go through in the Finance Committee then would come through the board. And that's not what we want to do. We want to expedite some of that discussion in our committees. And so I'd like to recommend that from here on in, those amendments are thoroughly vetted, whatever committee it is, in this case, the Policy Committee. So we're not spending 2 hours on going through these policies that should have been dealt with in the Policy Committee.
Thank you.
Mr.
Moore?
Chair, yes. Most of these amendments were, with the Policy Committee, we were only looking at the revisions. And so many of these amendments, I think, with the exception of probably one policy, it was looking at the revisions. And so the revisions, they passed and I felt they were okay, but when I read the whole policy, that's when I had a problem. So I just want to clarify that.
Mr. Chair, again, in all due respect, that should come up at the committee. When you have issues dealing with amendments to policies, that should come up to the committee. So,
Thank you. Once again, I apologize for missing you before the recess. This brings us now to 8C, first reading of policy, of new policy 507.5, school resource officers. This is information only. There is nothing to vote on this evening with regards to this policy. Are there any questions, or Mr. Benty, is there anything you'd like to state on this policy that we should specifically know?
No, this came out of the issue that we had last school year, where there were some changes in the previous legislative piece that caused many schools, not us, even though we were listed, as removing their school resource officers. We did not. But so this policy was created to help circumvent some of those and clear up some of the pieces around definitions, contractual duties, training, and then there are some legal references and cross-references as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Benty regarding that?
Mr. Chair, I do have a little concern that,
Excuse me.
that we don't have coverage in the schools, or the two schools, during the school year, full coverage. I've been told that if there's, one of them is part of like a sniper or whatever for a crisis, then he has to leave and go to Mankato or whatever, and we don't have coverage, nobody there. Is that true or not?
So the contract that we have with the city and the Faribault Police Department is that we have one officer assigned to our middle school and one officer assigned to our high school. If that officer needs to leave either for training or for an emergency, that officer is not filled by another officer, because the one in the other building will either cover or they'll have officers in town do drive-arounds to be in the vicinity. They do not assign another officer if that one is out.
Okay, can we change that in this policy, that when the students are there from this time to this time, that we have a officer in our schools?
So that would not be a policy, that would be a contract issue.
Okay, then how do we have to look at that contract?
So the contract will be coming, I believe, in September. We're waiting to get it from the city.
Okay, then make a note of that then.
Did we not talk about that at our most recent finance meeting? Right, we did.
Yeah, but we have to wait to get we approve the dollar amount. We have to wait to get the official contract from the city itself.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay. Other questions regarding the first reading of policy 507.5? Okay. We will move on to item 8D, approve adoption of new policy 524.5, cell phone and personal electronic device policy. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second?
A motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Ms. Steves. Mr. Benty, I will turn it over to you for some information.
Yeah, so in our last legislative session, the legislator passed statute 121A.73, requiring all school districts to have a cell phone policy in place by March of 2025. The state does not dictate what that policy says. It just says that you need to have one in place. So what we did, we had heard a lot from the school board. We had heard a lot from parents, a lot from teachers, and from students themselves. At our elementary school and our middle school, we were already following the Away for the Day model. So you can go to awayfortheday.com. It is a website talking about cell phone use in school. They have different policies on there from districts that have followed their ideas. Thank you, NOSCO. NOSCO has it up on the screen up there. Is it not awayfortheday.com? There you go. So it's a resource that is available. Our elementaries have been doing this. Our middle school took this up 2 years ago. So really, this was a policy for two purposes. One, to get in front of what our legislature was saying we needed to do, and two, to help support what our families, students, staff were asking for. So what this does is this formally announces that Faribault Public Schools will follow the Away for the Day format, and that it will extend all through pre-K through 12th grade, including staff, right? Because there's a staff component to this as well. So you'll see in here that it discusses everything from visitors to emergencies. Will we need to come back and look at this for some what ifs? I do believe so. I have run this through our attorneys. They did make a couple small adjustments to it in some language pieces, but this is what we feel comfortable moving forward to the school board.
Thank you, Mr. Benty. Questions? Mr. Robichaud.
Yes, generally, I really support this policy because Away for the Day does create a cell phone free zone in our school district, and that's great. The only area I have a problem with is the devices may be used before and after school and during lunch at the high school. How can we call it Away for the Day if they're allowed to use it during their lunch hours or lunchtime? And I'd like to propose a novel idea that cell phones not be allowed during this high school's lunch period, and let's have the kids engage in conversations and talk to one another, and find out what's going on. And You know, the old adage about if I talk to somebody, I know a little bit more about that individual. Another thing is, you know, let's create ambassadors during the lunchroom where they see a student sitting by him or herself, and this ambassador can go over, and they're not on a phone talking. They actually can go over and physically visit with that individual about what's going on with them and what, is there something I can do, something can help. So I think generally the policy is good, but I'm concerned about if we're going to have a way for the day, it has to be a way for the day. And let's have a cell phone zone, free zone across the district from the time the kids get to school till the time they leave at the end of the day. That includes during lunch at the high school.
Mr. Robichaud,
So I can't support the policy as
is
it's
that
done.
an amendment you're making, or no? Or just a common statement?
Well, I would, okay, I will introduce a motion or amendment to strike the latter part of the general statement of policy number 2, and during lunch at Faribault High School, strike that off and say that they're not allowed any time during the school day.
And Mr. Robichaud, just for clarification purposes, is that students or staff as well? I believe, Mr. Benty, earlier in your
Yep.
comments, you said that staff are expected to abide by this as well.
That is correct. If you look at section 2 where it talks about scope, it applies to all students, staff, visitors, and volunteers within Faribault Public Schools.
And again, I would follow up on that. Adults should model what we expect from our students.
So, let me just clarify. Section 3, General Statement of Policy, 3A.2.
That's
I believe
correct.
your amendment is removing,
And during lunch,
striking 3.A.2, correct?
not,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, just removing lunch?
that's correct.
So
And
devices,
during lunch
yeah,
Devices may be used before and after
school.
school, period.
Okay,
at Faribault High School only.
Well, they're not allowed in the lunchrooms at any other buildings, right, Superintendent?
Well, you want to keep in, and I'm guessing the elementaries along with the middle school do not have device use, period.
Right.
All right, so this, if you want to continue, this would need to say, device use may be used before and after school at Faribault High School only.
that's your
I'll accept that, yes.
amendment? Okay, do we have since the amendment's made, I'll look for a second before we
Second.
have discussion. Mr. Olson, okay. So we have a motion and a second to strike the word, or the words during lunch. So, Mr. Benty, just a practical question for you. A lot of students at the high school have open lunch, or it used to be called open lunch. They can leave, they can go out to a restaurant, they can go home and eat, they come back, all that stuff, right? We also have a fair amount of kids that do PSEO between maybe the high school and South Central,
Yep.
or a fair amount of kids that do in person, and then they can also end up doing FOA, right? And the schedule isn't all in high school and then all FOA. It's kind of a blended hybrid, if you will.
Correct.
If we strike this out, how does this work in terms of a kid goes outside to go to lunch, and they get out their cell phone and they're out in the parking lot? Now they're on their cell phone. Are we then going to need staff out there policing every cell phone in the parking lot? What does that look like? I'm just looking at it from a practical standpoint. What do you see envisioning here if we strike out during lunch?
So I think that it would be a violation because it does talk about on premises. All
Okay.
right, so that if you were to strike that out, that would be a violation of if a student decided to walk out and leave and they're on the phone
Right.
in the parking lot, that would be a violation of this.
So, open lunches, who can go outside? Can anybody go outside at lunchtime and stay on the property, or what are the
Juniors and
rules there?
seniors are allowed to leave campus for lunch.
Leave campus?
Physically leave campus. freshmen and sophomores have to stay on campus for lunch.
But-
So they can eat in the lunchroom, and then sometimes they are allowed to go right outside in the courtyard area.
So where the athletic entrance is
That
tore
is
up,
correct,
there might
yes.
be a meeting spot there.
Yes.
Okay. So-
Weather permitting.
Yeah. Mr. Robichaud, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. It would be wonderful to have kids having lunch with each other, talking. I'm afraid that the whole during lunch, I think it really makes it difficult. I think all of the staff are all of a sudden going to turn into cell phone police officers, or you're going to have the vast majority of all students end up outside, and you're going to have literally hundreds of students outside at lunch, getting out their cell phones, and I don't know how we're going to then parole that, police that, patrol it, whatever you want. I'm just being really honest with you. That's my concern with the amendment. Open for discussion.
I hear everything that Dr. Rosa is saying, and I agree with a lot of the majority of points. I guess for me, comfortable with the way for the complete entirety of the day for elementary and middle school, but in my mind, we're teaching these kids how to behave responsibly and interact with each other and handle a phone and not be like this. So I think as long as, you know, they're acting respectful, they're of course not using their phones for inappropriate things. I, again, would very much encourage students to put their phones in their bags and their backpacks and talk to students. I think that's, you know, one thing that they're gonna really miss once they get into the real world. But I agree with Mr. Wolf as, I don't know how to feasibly enforce it. And not to mention, you know, our staff use their lunch break to make personal phone calls, which agree with it, don't agree with it. Can go both ways.
Yeah. Well, just a comment if I can, Mr. Chair. If we want to teach students responsibility, we're saying, hey, you don't have your cell phone during lunch hours or lunchtime, that's teaching them responsibility. That in fact, we want you to engage with other students on a regular basis. You know, build those peer relationships. And we need to do it. And then I think we need to redefine it. It's not a way for the day. The cell phones are not a way for the day. They're a way only when, you know, and before school, and sometimes during the day, and then at the end of the day, they get the phone back. I know, I hear the complications that you're talking about. Anything that is going to benefit students does have some challenges, there's no doubt about it. But I think if we don't face those challenges of what it means for our students and their mental health, then I think we have some real other issues that we need to deal with.
What about can we add a contingency of, you know, we're having a way for the day for all three levels? And if it's not working, or, you know, if we don't have Dr. Robichaud's amendment, if it isn't working, I mean, can we add, is there flexibility to adding these hours of provisions, if you will?
Policy is inherently inflexible, so so I think you would have to be quite creative in how you would create the policy to be flexible around it. So that's, yeah.
So, I'm not sure how I'm gonna say this. So policy is essentially our law.
Yep.
And if our law of having cell phones away from the day is unobtainable, and I'm talking about, honestly, I agree with Mr. Wolf, is I don't see how we can have all of our staff outside policing during an hour. I know that kids and adults, and many people are addicted to their cell phones. I just don't know how we would be able to effectively follow the law, which would be the policy. Again, I'm open. I very much in support of this policy as a whole. I think it's very much needed, not just because it's coming from the state legislator. I think it's very much needed for all of our students.
It's unfortunate we don't have any student representatives here tonight to kind of tell us what their thoughts would be from a student level,
She
but
did.
it is what
She
it is.
did.
She did.
She did.
Mr. Chair, at one of our meetings
Yeah.
a few months ago.
And did she say that
She was
during
very
lunch it would be
supportive
great
of
to
it.
do
Yes,
during
yeah,
lunch?
Yeah.
she was.
Very supportive
I
of it.
remember. yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Mr. Rocha?
I just have one other, the other thing under classroom policy, unless specifically authorized by a teacher, in other words, there's not consistency across the district when it comes to teachers looking at cell phone in their classroom. So I may go to Mr. Bente's classroom and he does absolutely no cell phones at all. But if I go down the hall to the next teacher at Mr. Olson's room, and he's saying, yes, you can use cell phones. There's inconsistency from that standpoint. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Moore?
Yes, Dr. Robichaud, many times we don't agree, but I agree with you 100%, 110% if possible. And I do agree with you, and I know there's practicalities that we have to look at. However, I'm one that really likes to stand on principle, so I think that's what you said. I really agree with you, and so I want to stand on that principle, so.
Thank you. Mr. Bente, any thoughts from you, just from a, if this amendment passes, in enforcement, what does that mean? You were a high school principal, you were an assistant principal. What does that potentially just logically mean?
Yeah, so there's a difference in being a teacher in a classroom of 25 to 30 students and being able to look out and understand what's going on in that room and what each student is doing versus a lunchroom of 400 or more. So I think that its enforcement is going to be difficult. But it's up to the board to decide what stance they want to take on this. We have tried pieces in the past before and had to come back to the board and say, I'm sorry, this is not what we're able to do. Can we talk about this again? And we've had pieces where we've been able to actually pull it off. So as a former high school principal, I think it would be difficult to enforce this in the lunchroom. But this is, once again, for the board decides policy, so.
No, I fully hear what people are saying. I'm going to even go a step further, that I believe this will drive more people to do destructive behaviors in their vehicles during the school day. I firmly believe that. They can essentially hide in their vehicle if they have a vehicle there for an upperclassman. But that's just my thoughts, and I am wrong more than I'm right. Just ask my wife. So anyway, other discussion on this amendment? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call. A yes vote is in favor of the amendment, which, Ms. Kenny, are we clear on it? It's striking out during lunch?
Yes.
Okay. A yes vote is in favor of the amendment, striking during lunch. A no vote is in favor of, I'm not in favor of it and leaving it as is. Fair enough? Okay, Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud.
yes.
Ms. Boudreau. Ms. Steves. Mr. Olson.
Yes.
And I'm a no, so that amendment ties 3-3, and thus it fails. So now we're back to the original policy as presented, where everything is there in front of us. Further discussion on the new policy as originally presented.
Too bad that failed, I don't understand. I've been here long enough. I'm disappointed that we're allowing any cell phones on the property. You know, you say, well, of course it failed, but, you know, lunchtime, and Jerry is 100% correct on that. But before and after school, well, they have it in their pocket or their backpack. And who knows if they're going to use it in the bathroom or in the hallway as, you know, whatever. So to me, this is a useless policy. I don't think we're doing anything.
Okay.
So I'm disappointed. I really am.
Other comments, discussion?
Also that on the consequences, you have 3 of them. Can we cut them down to 2? Why give all these chances?
So this is standard with the away for the day piece, and it's also very similar to what most districts that are going to some type of cell phone ban are putting together.
Okay, I personally don't care what they do, but these one here is just, let them know, the students, that don't use the cell phone. To me, you should grab it, you get one chance and you're gone. Not the student, but, you know, unless they keep on doing it, then there's something else, but I'd say try to cut it down.
Other thoughts or comments for discussion?
I guess I'll make that amendment,
Okay.
that we cut it down.
Hang on here.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. Your amendment, Mr. Olson, is going to be what?
The first offense stays, but then when you say the second, and then put the words on for the third behind it. So basically, you get only two chances.
So, Mr.
So
Olson,
eliminate number 3.
let me make sure, you want number 3 gone where it
Gone.
states may face additional disciplinary action?
Well,
You want that gone? Or you want number 2 gone and number 3 bumped up to number 2?
Yeah, right, that would be, right. So the third would be the second out there. Wipe out the second offense, but then move number 3 up and change the word third to second. Okay,
Is that,
Yeah.
don't say I never helped you. Mr. Benty, is that clear of what his
Yes.
proposal is? Is that clear, everybody, his amendment? So that's a first, Mr. Olson's amendment. Is there a second for his amendment?
Second.
Further discussion on this amendment? Mr. Benty, I have a question for you, and maybe it's in here, and maybe that's what a cell phones, under B1, it says cell phones and PEDs.
Personal electronic devices.
Okay, so does that include the earbuds, AirBuds, whatever we call these things that we
Yes.
stick in our ear?
Yes,
So those are no longer allowed at all in a classroom?
that is correct.
Okay, what about an Apple Watch per se? What do we do there? How is that?
So
Police.
that one is considered, yes, it's a personal electronic device. If the cell phone is turned off, then it shouldn't be receiving anything. However, I have one, and I will tell you, if my cell phone is off,
Sure.
and this will continue to send me messages through Wi-Fi,
Yeah, because you're on the data plan.
right? No,
Or-
through
yeah,
Wi-Fi.
okay, yeah.
All right, yes. So that's going to have to be one of those areas that, like I said, we figure out. But technically, if you see a student that keeps doing this, that is a personal electronic device.
So you could take this just like you take this.
That is correct. If they're abusing it, yes.
Can I change the?
Where does that lie, the liability? If a phone is taken, does the phone go to the office, or does the phone stay in the classroom that it was taken for the day?
So under this policy, the first offense is the device is returned to the student at the end of the day. So any device that is taken will go to the office until the end of the day.
Okay, so I'm set teacher, third hour teacher, Mr. Olson is in my class. He has a Apple Watch, he's playing with it.
Mhm.
Third hour gets over, I've said, Mr. Olson, I need your watch, you're on it.
Mhm.
I take that watch to the office, when?
So I believe what they're doing is they're calling in the main office, and an administrator will come up confiscate the item, take it down and put it, because we have to be careful here. As soon as we take possession of any item, we are responsible for it. So if we take a phone, if we take a watch and we lose it, we break it, anything like that, we are liable.
So that administrator will get their steps in every single day.
That
I don't know
administrator
what else they're gonna get done that
potentially
day.
will get their steps in, yes.
Okay. So, for clarification's sake, earbuds, headphones, potentially watches, all that, okay? Thank you. So, the amendment is there by Mr. Olson under something C, hang on,
Something.
3C.
3C, yeah.
Consequences of policy violations. Mr. Olson's amendment is to essentially eliminate number 2 and move number 3 up to number 2, so there will be a first offense and a second offense and subsequent offenses, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, and Ms. Moore has seconded that amendment. Further discussion on this amendment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud,
No.
Ms. Boudreau,
Yes.
Ms. Steves? Sorry, you're getting caught up. So Ms. Moore was a yes, Mr. Robichaud was a no, Ms. Boudreau was a yes, and now we're to you.
I'm gonna say no.
You're a no? Okay, Mr. Olson?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a no. So that motion ties 3-3. In essence, it fails. We are back to the original new policy 524.5 that is in front of us. Further discussion on this policy. Mr. Benty, you cannot say we're not vetting this well for you tonight. Any
Now it's
further
prob-
discussion?
Now is probably not the time to tell you that AI wrote most of this, so.
Any further discussion?
Mr.
It's probably
Chairman,
not
Yeah.
at the time.
Yes, yes, Ms.
I
Boudreau.
think anytime we initiate a new policy like this, it's drastically different from what students have been allowed to do in the past. It's going to take a while to implement. It's going to be a challenge for those trying to enforce it. Going to devote more time to enforcing the policy initially than, we want to. But I'm happy that we're having a policy, that we have one, and we can always modify it if we're finding that maybe it's not strict enough. I think this is a good place to start, and I would like feedback from our teachers, and et cetera. And I did want to present just a little data that there was research done, 8-year period on cell phone removal, and what they found, this was in Norway, the number of psychological consultations were reduced by 60% in female students. The incidence of bullying for both boys and girls lowered. Girls made gains in their GPA, and girls, a lot of girls are mentioned, were more likely to attend an academic high school track. There were no negative impact from introducing the policy, and it significantly decreased the health care symptoms for, mental health issues. So I think this is important data that maybe we can hope we'll see improvements in our academics from this policy. We know it's an experiment at first, but I hope our administration is able to keep it enforced. It's going to be challenging. Thank you. Thank you for the policy.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Moore.
Yes, I do agree that this policy is flawed right now, but I think I agree with Ms. Boudreau that we have to start someplace, and I think this is going to be a big change for the students. And just by what you read with the data, I think we need to start someplace, and we can modify if we have to, but we have to get something in place, I think. That is my
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Mr. Robichaud.
Just a comment. Thank you, Norwegians.
Yes, I know. Who knew?
Other discussion or comments? Okay, we do have a motion and we do have a second. I'm not aware of any other amendments at this time. So with that said, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Let's do a roll call so I can make sure. Ms. Moore?
Yes, I think we need to start
Okay,
someplace.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes, even though I introduced an amendment, I will vote on this policy.
Thank you. Ms. Boudreau?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Steves? Mr. Olson?
No.
And I'm a yes. So the motion passes 5-1. So, Mr. Benty, you now have a 507.5, I'm sorry, a 524.5 cell phone and personal electronic device policy. Can you just, before we move on real quick, talk to us about how is this being communicated out to students and parents?
Yeah, so this was put in the handbook, and then a communication was sent out to parents from the principal. It will be communicated to students. If they haven't seen it already in the messages that have gone out, it will be read every hour for the first at least few days of school over the PA by the principal. So he will explain every hour over the PA, this is a cell phone free, your cell phone should be put away, that type of thing, to help support the teachers that are enforcing it.
And
So-
there is a high school open house next week, I believe, next
Yeah.
Wednesday? I believe.
No, this Wednesday.
Oh, this Wednesday?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, school starts next week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this Wednesday. Today's Monday. Will it be discussed and highlighted there? Is there any signage or?
I don't know if they have signage around it, but I know I guarantee it'll be the topic of
Okay.
discussion.
Okay, thank you, much appreciated. Okay, this brings us to item 9, other committees. 9A, Finance. Item 9A1 is Finance Committee minutes. Ms. Boudreau, I've talked enough tonight. I'll turn it over to you. Anything you'd like to share?
Sure. First of all, the policy committee minutes for June is posted in here, and I think we've adopted some of those policies. This committee meeting was on August 12th. So we had an update on the new Director of Finance and Operations.
1 second, Ms. Boudreau, 1 second. Mr. Benty, are we giving an update on our August minutes here?
No,
We
we're
don't
always
have
1
one.
month
So
behind,
this is
so this
just
is
the
for the
June.
June 17th,
Okay.
because there was no meeting in July.
Sorry.
John usually gives it.
Oh, John
On the
usually
current?
does get, okay.
You're good. Give it on the current
I don't
then.
have to, but.
I just didn't want any confusion
They're
because nothing is
coming-
attached.
They're
so-
coming before the board, some of these decisions. So as I mentioned, the Director of Finance and Operations is Barbie Raisler. And we also are anticipating an audit the third week of September. Wrote that down. We discussed some contracts, agreements, and bids. One is for a school resource officer, and that particular it's a split. Half, the district pays for half, and the police department pays for half, and we will have 2 officers at our middle school, one at middle school and one at our high school. And then we had, Mr. Benty presented these things, maybe I'm taking away your info. We also approved, or I should say, approved isn't the word, we're recommending an increase, an additional kindergarten teacher at Roosevelt, just due to the enrollment count, and this will make most all of our classrooms about 18 to 20 students. And that was 2 kind of important things. The other was approval of the ice arena contract, and that contract we will, I should say recommended, will be approved at our board meeting, probably the next one. And then there is a trip, the band, the choir, and the orchestra, but we did not vote on that because I think it wasn't quite ready. I don't remember why, but that was tabled. So those are and then we had the student count, and we are still receiving enrollees. Maybe Mr. Benty can comment on that. So our numbers are not totally certain yet. That was pretty much it. Mr. Chair, did you have anything else?
No, you did a wonderful job.
Okay.
Mr. Benty, anything you'd like to follow up on Ms. Boudreau's comments?
No, I think she did quite well. So we are in the process of we're still sticking with the 3,095 number as our district-wide enrollment projection. We are tracking towards our kindergarten classes. They do typically come in slow. They have started to ramp up here in August, but we're always kind of deciding whether we are going to hit our kindergarten number or not. What I've been told from our police department is that we have a lot of immigrant families that are joining our community on a weekly basis. So we don't always know about those. So the first few weeks of school will be very interesting with enrollment. I'm guessing I will not have solid numbers for you until probably the August 5th count.
Yeah, August 5th?
Oh, excuse me, October 5th count.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding Finance Committee topics, items? Yes,
You were
Mr.
talking
Olson.
about student counts,
Oh,
but,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, what's the status of the academy? Anybody contacted them recently? Are they going up, losing, whatever?
Are you speaking about Surratt Academy?
Yeah.
So Surratt Academy has not reached out to us with their numbers at this point. They have added another grade level. So my guess is their numbers are going up. Through the grapevine, I heard that they are close to 100. I cannot verify that with any other information. But I also know that we've had a few students that I've been told that have re-enrolled back with us from there. So it's kind of all over the place right now, to be honest with you. They ended the year with, I believe, 53 students. So,
And that's public information.
yes, that would be public information that would be available on the MDE report card for them.
Mr. Benti, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know it well enough, but I believe when they opened the academy last year, their plan was to add a grade level this year. So I don't believe that's something new.
No.
I mean, it's new
No.
this year, but I don't
Yes.
believe that's a new plan, correct?
That is correct. Their plan is to add a grade level all the way through 12th grade,
Okay,
one per year.
okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yep. Any other questions, comments? Okay, that brings us to item 10, other matters, gifts and donations, resolution 25-02. I will read these briefly. Number one, the Faribault Booster Club donated $50 to the athletic department for track pits. That was actually a pass-through donation. Number two, the Petra Foundation donated $30,000 to community education for Little Falcons. And number three, the Knights of Columbus donated $128 to special education to help with the DCD program, Falcon Cafe. I will entertain a motion to approve these gifts and donations.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Steves. Further comment or discussion? I will just lead off here. Thank you to all these organizations. A special thank you to the Petra Foundation. I believe this is the third year that they have donated $30,000. Mr. Pruitt, is that correct? It's the third year they've done it, and from talking to them, I believe they absolutely see value in all these youngsters getting a wide variety of things that they can dip their toes in, if you will, and experience different things. So once again, a thank you to all of them, but by my count, this is about $90,000 from the Petra Foundation for this program specifically over 3 years. So
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
that's
Ms.
incredible, and the Petra family has given much to our community in many different aspects. Do we send a card or a thank
We
you?
always send a
or
letter.
Are we just doing that right now?
I believe we have to formally accept this donation, and then I believe, like all other donations, the district sends something out to all
Yes.
organizations that
Wonderful.
donate.
Okay, I'm so glad we do that. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Ms. Steves, this is a roll call, so I'll turn it over to you.
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ms. Steves, I just realized all these other roll calls I kind of led and you didn't. Should we go back?
No.
My apologies. My apologies for
Are we gonna start
dominating the
again?
conversation.
all night.
Miss Kenny said she has to be there somewhere by 6:45 a.m.
Yeah.
No worries.
I got an hour till my bedtime.
Anyway, sorry about that. This brings us to item 10B, consider adoption of resolution 25-03, authorizing execution of agreement for the grant from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety's Office of Traffic Safety. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Mr. Pruitt, thank you, welcome. We are early in the evening. I hope you are feeling energetic.
Been fun.
Give us an education here, if you will, please.
So last year, the district applied for a grant to the Minnesota Department of Public Safety's Office of Traffic Safety to start a adult driver's education program. It proved, as the memo kind of with these materials outlined, proved to be incredibly popular and exciting. There were nearly 350 adults who took the program last year in order to be able to help get their driver's license. It was a huge undertaking and effort by Joe Pinka, Jessica Velasquez, and Cassie Riopel and their teams to make this happen, and really just incredible interest in the community in this program. Based on this success, it's kind of become a state model, and so we approached the state again for their next round of funding, and have been awarded the maximum grant award again of $15,000 again for this coming year. In order for us to accept this award, the Office of Traffic Safety requires that the board approve the acceptance of the grant award. So that is why we're here today.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Yes, Ms. Boudreau.
So, Zach, thanks for your efforts on this. It's kind of like a wow, right? So is there a breakdown at all? Did you do a breakdown of the participants? It's a multicultural grant that's supposed to help us have better safety on our roads, right? Yeah. Let's see, the object is to reduce crashes, injuries, and deaths involving multicultural drivers. This is from the Department of Public Safety that I just got a little info on it. And so do you have any idea like how?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about, so originally the hope was to offer 3 sections based on the demand. They ended up offering 18 sections this past year. Each is about 10 hours long. 6 of them were held in Somali. 8 were in English and Spanish jointly, and 4 were specifically in Spanish. So that kind of shows sort of it was a broad cross-section of the community that participated. Those of a variety of backgrounds, but it was open to kind of adults who don't have a driver's license.
So, Mr. Chairman, Zach, can you relate how this program has benefited our district? I mean,
yeah,
maybe benefit and coalesces with some of our goals.
Yeah, for sure.
Academically.
I think one of the really concrete ways is, our adult basic education program. This has been a great entry point for some of our adults in the community to get to know the FEC and the great programming that happens there, and then potentially get connected with other programming options as well. I also think it's important to just recognize that sort of these are the families of our students, and being able to drive is a really important part of your child's success, whether it's helping them get to school, to practice, to other activities. If we all know that being able to drive and drive safely is a really important option. So this program is one of the ways that helps folks sort of get on the road and get on the road safely and be safe for all the rest of us on the road too.
That's great. Has it, Mr. Chairman and Zach, has it influenced your adult education program? Because those numbers have gone up. Has that been a factor, or? Yeah,
it's been as we'll probably come back to the board at some point, participation in adult basic education this past year was almost double the previous year. There were over 900 students who took part in adult basic education programming this year. It's now become one of the largest sort of in the state, and I think it's these kind of innovative programs that I think are one of the reasons that we're seeing that. Again, it was really folks, and again, huge credit to Joe, to Cassie and Jessica. they responded to a need. They could have said, we're only going to serve 25 people this year, which was what the original goal was, but they continued to say, how can, there's a lot of folks on the waiting list who want to take part in this program, so how do we make this happen? And so huge hats off to them for their willingness to do this.
Zach, does this take space away from students coming in for their GED?
No, this is a separate programming from that, so it's offered,
Well,
it's.
and a separate program, but is there physical space?
Yeah.
Are you displacing any GED or those kind of classes?
No, they're pretty creative over there in maximizing space, and they're using instructors like Joe Pinka wasn't previously involved with our ABE programming, and so that was a new instructor, and so
But priority would be GED students first, right?
That's certainly our GED program is one of the hallmarks of the ABE program over there, and I don't
Because
think
if you can't read, you can't take the test, or you can't read signs.
Exactly.
Like stop,
right, exactly, yeah.
which again, most of them don't anyway.
So.
Other comments, questions for Mr. Pruitt?
Again, hats off to you and your crew. It's great to see the growth, and it's tremendous. Welcoming all members of our community to get engaged with Faribault Public Schools. Very much appreciated.
Anyone else? Thank you. I'm
Zach.
sorry. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just wondering, there was because initially I know we were on the committee, it was for 25, and I like the safety aspect. Why do you think there was quite a jump from 25 to 346? Why do you think that was?
I think part of it was 25 was we were grasping, we had no idea. So 25 seemed like a number that from where we were sitting seemed like what the interest would be. We didn't want to overpromise. And really, I think with many of these kind of initial programs, you kind of find out based on people vote with their feet, certainly adult learners especially. And so I think people recognized that it was helping people get their driver's permit. And so that snowball effect, folks told others and in their families or in their networks. And I think that led to sort of a high level of interest.
Anything else, anyone? Mr. Pruitt, I'm sorry, go ahead. You have something?
No, I guess I did get some pushback from people on this. One of the questions was, I think you touched on it, Ms. Badura, how is this related to our academic achievement, for K through 12? Because this is for adults.
Right. Well, we do offer, as a community ed, we do offer adult basic education programming. That's part of our core mission as offering community education. And again, I would say, the folks in those programs are our parents. And if we talk about family engagement, it's about supporting families to be able to help their kids. And if they need to drive their kids to school or because their kids miss the bus, we want them to have a driver's license to be able to do that. And so that one feels pretty direct to me, but.
Yeah, and I do like the idea, because when it came up in our committee, I did like the idea of the safety aspect. Another person, like I said, I did get some pushback from the community. They felt that, one comment was a community that has enough on its plate. Instead, they should concentrate on voting parents learning how to support their children in education by reading to them, redosing screen time, etc. So I guess,
Please, Dr. Moore, please encourage those folks to reach out to me. I would love to hear their ideas for the department and additional ways that we can help to support folks in the community.
Mr. Pruitt, thank you. Thank you to the crew that did this, and very successful, and hard to argue if we have better, safer drivers, that our community is not better off. So thank you. Much appreciated. So we do have a motion, and we do have a second for Resolution 25-03. So, Ms. Steves, I will turn it over to you.
Linda Boudreau?
Aye.
Linda Moore?
no.
Richard Olson?
I'm going to abstain.
Jerry Robichaud?
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. Chad Wolf?
Aye.
Abstention, 5.
Yeah, it would be 5-1. Mr. Olson's abstention goes with the majority. Okay, that passes 5-1. Thank you. Brings us to item 10C, consider approval of an additional kindergarten teacher at Roosevelt. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
That was you, Ms. Steve? Motion by Ms. Steves, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Boudreau. And Ms. Boudreau, this is what you briefly talked about during the finance recap, so thank you. Mr. Benty, I'll turn it over to you just for a bit of education here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is pretty standard operating procedure for our district here. I believe, I don't know if we've gone a single summer where we haven't added a kindergarten teacher back into the mix. So we're asking for one again for this fall to keep our numbers at between 18 to 20 at Roosevelt Elementary. So right now our numbers are right around that area for Jefferson and Lincoln, but have bumped up in the Roosevelt and are now pushing up into the mid-20s to upper 20s. So we're looking for a kindergarten teacher to level out all of our kindergarten sections to about that 18 to 20 level as of numbers that we have now. So,
Mr. Benty, what do we do with this being on the docket for tonight? If it gets approved, I know school starts next week. I don't know that kindergarten starts Monday, but just walk us through the kind of the runway there.
So in a situation like this, prior to board approval, we are allowed to post, we are allowed to interview, we are allowed to call references. We can informally do a job offer dependent on approval of the board, as all job offers are. So we have moved forward with a lot of those, and actually it's not posted as a kindergarten teacher, it's posted as a second grade teacher, but the position is an additional kindergarten through some movement, internal movement. So if people go out and look for a kindergarten posting, you won't find it, you'll find a second grade posting. So
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to keep moving on. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Good luck with the hire. Brings us to 10D, consider approval of the fiscal year 24-25 ice arena contract. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. Olson with the first, Ms. Steves with the second. I think it's all in front of us, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. It's open for discussion. Mr. Olson.
Yeah, I'm the rep on the ice arena board. There's some scuttlebutt that Northfield might be building the ice arena for $27 million. And I don't know how this influences this. So just,
Yeah. Mr. Benty, I don't know if you're aware of anything or have anything to add. I do know that their ice rink is in tough shape, it sounds,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they've actually sold it to somebody or not, but their ice arena conversation has been going on for the last couple of years.
So my understanding is that Northfield is working with the city and perhaps one other organization. I believe maybe their hockey booster group or hockey families to build an ice arena. I thought it was more expensive than $27 million. I thought it was higher than that, but I don't know. I haven't seen that number, so.
Do you feel if they build something that has any impact here on our Faribault ice arena, the way it sits today?
I don't believe so, because we have consistently been ranked as the third best ice arena in the state. So depending on how many sheets of ice they put in, it could affect, but this is simply the amount that we are being charged by the the ice arena for our usage of ice time.
Okay, thank you. Other discussion?
in addition, there's, again, some scuttlebutt out there that we might be part of a $7 million either expansion or repair or new ice arena.
For $7 million, a new ice arena? Well, I don't think you're going to get much
Or-
for $7
or-
million.
Or maybe it was a repair or update or whatever, but it's out there.
So this is where I was very confused because I received that information as well. I have heard nothing about adding a second sheet of ice to our arena. I know you sit on that committee. Have you heard anything about a second
Just-
sheet of ice?
Just recently, like I said, to Northfield, which again, how will that affect ours, for rental or whatever?
Yeah.
Are people gonna go up there and rent up there? Or I don't know. And then for the money down here, how is that gonna be split? Right now, it's three ways. We own a third.
That is correct,
district, so-
yes.
But
I have not been approached by anyone
I
about
don't think they've gone that far.
building a second, because the $7 million supposedly was for a second sheet of ice in Faribault. I have not heard anything about that, so, and I'm sure it would go through the committee before it would go anywhere else, so.
Okay. Anything else? Any other scuttlebutt, Mr. Olson?
I can make up a lot of stuff if you want me to.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. That brings us to 10E, consider approval of recommended terms and conditions of proposed agreement with local number 70 operating engineers contract. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud. It is there in front of us. Ms. Yocum, you want to come up in case we have any questions?
So I will be abstaining from discussion and voting on this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steves. Any questions for Ms. Yocum that you want answered that is, you want clarification on? Otherwise, it's there in front of us. Thank you for your efforts, and thank you to the operating group to getting this far. Questions, comments, discussion?
What's the total package? Quickly.
Total package is at the bottom of the memo. It is $181,117.
And percentage wise? First year, second year?
It's on the document.
The wages or the total package?
Total package. Benefits, all that. Oh, there it is. Oh. Year one is 3.5. Oh, then you're okay. 3.5.
Other questions, comments from Ms. Yocum? You good, Mr. Olson?
Yeah. It's
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Giving everybody an opportunity. This is not a roll call, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention, so that makes it 6-0.
No, it's not abstention. Just,
You said
I
yes.
abstained myself.
She abstained. So
would that go,
an abstention goes with the majority.
majority.
For a formal count. That's what the MSBA videos tell us, correct? Okay,
okay.
Thank
well,
you.
That's, okay.
Thank you.
thank you, we appreciate it.
Okay. That's right.
That brings us to 10F, reorganization update. Mr. Benty.
Yeah, so the final committee meeting will be next Tuesday, and then the board will have the presentation of reorg possibilities on September 23rd, with the idea that the board will vote in October on that. So that is the plan moving forward.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Benty, with the options, there's going to be a few options, not just all or nothing, right? Okay.
Well, there's going to be a few options,
Yes.
but I don't know what you mean when you say
Well,
all or nothing.
I think the last time it was either reorganization or no reorganization. So we're going to have a couple different options with reorganization. I'm
There were
assuming.
more options last time. The board
Well,
whittled it down to one
Yes,
or
okay,
not.
yes.
So, yes, more
Yes,
options
okay,
will
that's
be
my
brought this
question.
time.
Thank
Mr. Chairman, so Superintendent Benty, what's the process with the committee? Do they approve these options then? Or are they weighing in on consensus? Or will they do that to the board?
So the committee has put together a lot of information. It was an advisory committee for me. So they went through, they put a lot of information together on what they thought was the most important or what they thought would be good pieces to have in a reorganization. I will then put those together into possible packages and then present them to them to say, all right, how do you wish to rank these? You know, what is your number one? What is your number two? What is your number three? And so on. So that way they can move it forward.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Benty, I want to thank you, and I want to thank, I know in our audience we have two members of this reorganization facilities committee. Thank you to both of you. Anybody watching, thank you. I know it's been a fair amount of time. Fair amount is subjective because I don't know how many hours, but I think you've had 5 meetings, 4, 5, 6 meetings?
Yeah,
5 meetings, and
meetings,
you've got a
yeah.
6 coming up. So just a big thank you to the people volunteering their time and effort, asking wonderful questions, going on tours, all of that stuff. So really, really greatly appreciate it. So thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the reorg update? Okay. That moves us to item 11, dates to remember, information only. September 3rd, 2024, 3:45 p.m. is the policy committee. September 9th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. is a work session. September 16th, 2024, 7:30 a.m. is our next finance committee meeting. September 23rd, 2024, 5:30 is our next regular board meeting. Before we move to closed session, real quick, Ms. Kenny, we had a whole lot of moving parts tonight with amendments and motions. Do you have any questions on what was vote count or anything like that? You're good. You're a rock star. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. So with that, item number 12, we will move to a closed session as permitted by Minnesota State Statute 13D.03 for negotiation strategies with paraprofessionals, nurses, and administrative assistants. I will entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Boudreau. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will take a 5-minute break, and at 8:50, we'll start our closed session.